The man casually creating a sword sheath causes all the hunters in the exam room to be stunned. Even Ryue, one of the strongest hunters right now, immediately wants to rush forward to seize it. This scene leaves all the judges in disbelief because the sword he created exudes an extremely terrifying aura. After the appraisal system, this fire attribute sword sheath has reached the super rare level, capable of both storage and amplifying demonic energy many times over. No one understands how a contestant could possess such terrifying forging skills, but little did they know that in his previous life, this man was the strongest blacksmith. Thanks to his forging skills, he created countless divine-grade weapons for heroes, and then fought alongside them to kill the 6 destructive demon gods. But despite the victory, humanity still cannot survive, because among those 6 destructive demon gods, one is known as the Destroyer of the Seas. Even though he is dead, most of the land is still swallowed by the Death Sea he created. Thinking of that, Hun couldn't help but sneer. I barely survived. And now I have to die in this sea. The surviving heroes are falling one by one. Even the hero tower holding up the earth has collapsed. This damn cursed sea area still hasn't vanished even after the demon god was killed. Just then, a man appeared behind him, answering his words. Are you really planning to put on a show here, all by yourself? Hakar moves in front of Hunkar. He slightly frowned when he saw his disheveled appearance. Anyone looking at him would think he was carrying the entire world on his shoulders. The fierce dog Yom Song. Hearing that, Luis turned and responded with a provocative remark in reply to the teasing. The one who just collapsed pretending to be sick now wants to act heroic? Brutal dog Luis Valen. Meanwhile, Amia clutched her head and lamented. Oh dear, I already warned you before, didn't I? Big Brother is just trying to enjoy his power after taking command of the army. After a brief silence, Ban Qian Lin coldly ordered as the others took turns criticizing. Stop talking nonsense. You guys would have been dead long ago if it weren't for the equipment I provided. The blacksmith finally leaves the forge. As soon as the words finished, Song Ha immediately flew into a rage. What did you say? Luis here can't help but sigh. This guy's words are really hard to listen to. Amia turned to remind him gently. Big Brother, that's a bit too much. Immediately after, he let out a curse that made the atmosphere suddenly heavy as if suffocated. Shut up. If those brats don't want to use it, then give me back all the stuff. At that moment, in Hun's mind, only one thought remained. The 3 people in front of me are the 3 hounds. They don't stand with humanity, nor do they belong to those damn demons. They only act according to their own desires, always putting their personal interests above all. They are the ones who stay on the sidelines to profit from the conflict. Even though they are the most selfish bastards, they still survived until this moment, and in the end, they are the most active ones. Thinking about this, Zehun vaguely wondered if things would have turned out better if they had acted sooner. Once again, his gaze is interrupted by the sun setting over the sea. Zehun calmly sits down on the ground and then glances behind him. Is there anyone left who can hold on? Hearing this, Mr. Ha, clutching his stomach, sank to his knees. He let out a dry sound. I'm at my limit. All the internal organs are crushed beyond recognition. Luis lifts his head to the sky and slowly speaks. Things here aren't much better. It seems to be cursed. Blood keeps flowing endlessly. Over here, Amia keeps complaining. My heart's been pierced through. I probably won't make it. Seeing that, Hun's car sighed helplessly and said, I told you so? You should have worked together from the beginning. Even as they were dying, he still coldly cursed instead of being selfish and only caring about himself. Damn those 3 dogs. Suddenly, a loud noise rang out, drawing Sehun's attention, and he saw Ha Lewis and Amir's group had collapsed. Faced with that scene, he calmly stood up, sighed softly, and still managed to cause trouble until the very last moment. Then Hun slowly approached, gently grabbing the hammer, lifting the object into the air, his eyes fixed on the metal piece below. After a moment, he carefully embedded the knives beside Amia's body. At this moment, Hun's voice was hoarse with anger as he thought to himself, You should cherish your equipment a little more. If it's this battered, how can you use it anymore? Secretly pondering that at least this pile could serve as a tombstone for them. After finishing, Sehun looked up at the endless sky, standing silently in the howling sea wind, with a self-deprecating smile. So now it's my turn. Sehun's blood-cracked hand slowly raised, his gaze cold and chilling. This will also be the last time I do this. Immediately, he struck hard in the chest. The space trembled slightly, luminous words floated before him, and a cold voice echoed in his mind as he began to extract the connection from the target. The connection level with the creator of the soul vehicle has reached a negative level, and a faint blue crystal appears in his hand with an invisible aura of light surrounding the ore. The cold system explains it as a unique skill. The linking blacksmith can extract special ore from connected targets. The effect of the ore depends on the relationship and potential of the target. Sehun stared intently at the crystal, his mind filled with thoughts. However, if I use it on myself, what it creates is even worse than a piece of ordinary scrap metal. Colorless scrap, a type of linked ore extracted from the Sehun, completely empty. I wish I had awakened this ability a little earlier. He looked at the faint ore in his hand, digging his nails deep, whispering as if begging the darkness. If there's nothing inside, then swallow the regret tormenting me. Suddenly, Sehun raised his hammer high, a distant rumble echoing. He looked up at the turbulent Black Sea. Is that sound now the roar of the storm or the waves? Have I been hearing it all this time? But one thing I am sure of is that whenever this sound echoes in my ears, at that moment Hun is frantically pounding the object with his hammer. A bold idea suddenly came to mind, a masterpiece beyond imagination that would always come to life. At the final moment, as the hammer strikes down, a sudden beam of light shoots straight into the sky, and he raises the sword high, his voice deep and resolute. Yet even then, no extraordinary power emerges. After finishing, Sehun couldn't help but mock himself, thinking that something good might appear, even if it was just his own core link stone. Looking at the colorless metal in his hand, he muttered to himself, "It's still so dull and boring. Instead, I will end this life with my own hands." At this moment, Sehun's facial muscles suddenly tensed, his eyes rolled back, then he burst into a distorted laugh that echoed through the churning sea, both mad and tragic. I really am a madman, thinking that the only thing I've done until the very end is to wield the forging hammer. At that moment, Sehun's mind sank into a whirl of thoughts, and when he discarded his last sword, he realized a truth about the sound of the waves that had been appearing ever since he awakened his magic. All this time, I kept wondering what that sound meant. Turns out it was the presence of the ocean destroying the cycle. His eyes closed, regret weighing down on him like a mountain, his lips trembling with remorse. If only I had understood that earlier, or if only I had convinced those 3 dogs sooner, then Sehun wouldn't have denied it. If I had trained earlier for others even just a little, maybe everything could have turned out differently. The space around the Hun suddenly twisted, and a giant image of ancient equipment appeared. The announcement voice echoes, and the spiritual image of the ancient equipment appears. The primitive mind projection skill is being activated. Amid the blinding light, a distant voice calmly speaks. The contestant slowly opens his eyes, breathing heavily, feeling a bit panicked. What? I still haven't died yet? Hey, contestant Lai Sehun, what are you doing over there? Hearing that, Sehun shivered slightly. I haven't heard that word in 31 years. Then suddenly he shouted, "Why are you just standing there absent-mindedly in the middle of the entrance exam?" As soon as he finished speaking, he widened his eyes. What? Sehun looked around. The entrance exam? If this is something from 31 years ago, could these be the 3 bears? Are these memories surfacing just before I close my eyes? His eyes suddenly lit up with shock as he remembered the final moment. Wait a minute. Was the mental projection phenomenon I saw just before dying? The air around the Hun vehicle seems to freeze, breath quickening. Is this a return to the starting point? Could it really have come from my linked stone weapon? Assistant Han said sternly, "This is your final warning. Candidate Lai, Hun," he continued. "If you don't do it properly now, I will kick you out of here, boss." Upon hearing this, he nodded instinctively. Yes. Sehun stares intently at the hammer below. In hindsight, it all makes sense. His hand gently clenched in mid-air as if gripping an invisible hammer handle. If I had realized my bestowed powers earlier and started forging with the hammer sooner, could I have changed the entire situation? Sehun immediately denied passionately. No, that's not the most important thing. His breathing slowed, his heartbeat steadied, and his whole body seemed reborn in that moment of awakening. He stared intently at his palm, with only one thing truly meaningful. Something he must absolutely accomplish now. As he thought of this, a faint smile appeared on his face. Standing tall in the room with eyes blazing, like the forge reigniting its first flame, his voice deep but echoing in his mind. I must protect everything. The corner of his mouth curled again, carrying the thought that in this life, I will pass the 3 battle exam. He gently raises the hammer high, his eyes brightening with his thoughts. Meeting those 3 dogs is only the beginning. Then suddenly, a small flame ignites. Enon shivers slightly, and he leans slightly toward his forge, his eyes filled with surprise. The contestant only saw the blacksmith frantically hammering the piece of metal, and Inon immediately stepped closer, his eyes fixed on the blacksmith's hands, truly astonishing, appearing slow but perfectly synchronized with the clear and pure ringing sound, and he couldn't help but marvel that this was truly a top-tier forging skill. At that moment, Inon stood still, his eyes fixed on him. He swallowed hard, unable to take his eyes off the ingot gradually taking shape. What level of perfection is that? At the same time, Han's assistant widened his eyes in amazement. Did he really make that? Seeing that, Inon smirked slightly. A genius contestant had applied. If he kept submitting like that, he would pass immediately. At that moment, Zehun forcefully strikes the piece of metal with his hammer. A loud noise echoes, drawing everyone's attention. Suddenly, the metal piece shattered into fragments. Assistant Han nearly lost his footing on the spot. Over here, Inon was so amazed that his eyes widened. At Zehun's house, he stared blankly at the burning object in his hand. Hun turns the small piece of metal in his hand. Not bad. But is this all its size? He purses his lips and analyzes, extracting the bond to quantify its relationship with a specific target to identify types of ore that don't actually exist. Zehun once again stared intently at the metal block, his eyes darkening. The problem was that the low bonding level made it difficult to utilize it at this moment. Looking at the current stats in front of him, he chuckled bitterly. Moreover, compared to the freshman of Babe, his own stats were truly pathetic. Zehun raised his head and sighed helplessly. It's a pity, but if that's the price to pay for going back to the past, it's still quite cheap, he muttered to himself, trying to calm down. That's right, don't rush. Hunu's eyes flash with deadly intent as he thinks about the future. Wanting more than this is just greed. There's still enough time to crush those damn demon world monsters. The demon creatures threaten not only humanity but the entire planet. The fact that the 6 great demon gods caused humanity's destruction was also entirely their plan. Hunu stared into the void, thinking to himself that to stop them, he couldn't be picky about the means or methods, and he must not let himself be thrown off by the important events of the future. So, I need to acquire a weapon or skill related to my memories first. He nodded slightly, as if confirming to himself. The first step of the plan to register into the cage has been completed. Now, at this moment, a flash of light suddenly appeared, catching Zehun's attention, and he opened his eyes wide with a look of shock. This is a system message sounding formal, indicating that the user's link level with Zehun has reached level 1, and the linking imprint skill has been added. 1 week later, at Babel Academy appears under the morning sun.
Damn it, I'm lost again.
Is this the right place? He looked around the wide corridor and stopped when he saw the familiar sign. Here it is. Good morning? Someone suddenly interrupted. But Hun's student. After a moment of confusion, he became stunned. Maiko slowly tapped the table. He said sarcastically, "You seem pretty relaxed." Michael raised an eyebrow and glanced toward the crowded waiting room. "Don't you see everyone waiting?" Mihan 3 puffs, vice principal of BIPA department. Hearing that, Inon couldn't help but speak up. "Vice principal, the supplementary exam doesn't start for another 10 minutes. He immediately interrupted, saying, "This is not a matter of time, but of attitude." Michael's voice grew serious. "I will have to warn him about this." Sehun felt a bit awkward on this side, and silently sighed inside. It's not just the refining department that's in a bad state. Is he also having conflicts with his superiors? Hun's gaze shifts towards Anon. Now I understand why he introduced another student. As he continued to look around, Han turned to look at him with an angry expression that he couldn't hide. His gaze stopped at Sehun, then looked him up and down. Seeing that, he remained still for a moment, and his arm unconsciously relaxed. After a moment of hesitation, Hun's car slowly spoke. "Nice to meet you." Despite Han's dismissive attitude, he forced an awkward smile. "This inexperienced kid, what is he up to? It's been a long time since I've been treated like this. So boring. I really can't believe it." Just at this moment, a voice rang out, drawing everyone's attention. "Has everyone gathered already?" Immediately after, a figure appeared under the blinding sunlight. Seeing this, Zehun and Han both turned around at the same time. "Over here!" Michael opens his mouth to breathe out. "We're just wondering when you'll arrive, sir, headmaster." At the same time, he widened his eyes upon seeing the opponent. The other person immediately sat down, eyeing Hun directly. She stared at him with a cold gaze, her voice low. "I'm sorry for being late." Ruha, the principal of the third-rate department. As soon as she saw Zehun, she couldn't help but feel a bit confused. Why is this woman here? The moment I saw Ruha, the car suddenly went silent, and her gaze darkened as if she was recalling distant memories. I once heard Feng Fan say she used to work at Babel. Thinking about it, my mind becomes even more confused. I never expected that person would now sit in the S-rank hero principal chair, the one who swallowed Ruhaha's weapon, a superhuman with a unique ability to increase power by absorbing various weapons. Before I rewound time, she was just a regular customer who often visited my shop. A long time later, Yu Ha appeared looking disheveled. Her voice softens, her eyes curved in a smile, but deep down there is an unguessable remorse. I truly regret having eaten his weapon by mistake. Meanwhile, Chun remained still and silent. He did not respond to Yu Ha. Then the space fell into silence. She lowered her head. "Over here!" Hun shows a furious expression, his teeth clenched so tightly that his body trembles. In the end, he can only helplessly bow his head, returning to reality as a short but firm call pulls him out of his thoughts. "This Hun is Hun." Hun suddenly comes to his senses and quickly responds. "Interesting," Inan spoke in a steady voice, his eyes scanning each contestant. "I will now begin explaining the exam content. Everyone, please focus." He emphasized each word clearly, and you will have a total of 90 minutes to complete this test. Inan paused for a moment before continuing. During those 90 minutes, your task is to forge an item compatible with the sword from the previous test. Inan suddenly paused for a few seconds, creating a heavy silence. Then his voice grew colder, each word ringing out clearly like an order. "You are only allowed to use alchemical forging techniques to craft." Inan gently tilts his head toward the shimmering display of ores. As for the materials, he lowered his voice and said, "You are free to choose any ore available here." Inan's tone grew solemn as his gaze passed respectfully over the two judges. "The final product will be personally evaluated by Principal Ruha and Vice Principal Bao, so pour your heart into creating something you are most proud of." Then he decisively lowered his hand, his voice ringing out like a starting signal. "All right." Standing before Sehun and Han, Inan shouted, and the official competition began. After a moment, he muttered softly to himself, "Is it only allowed to use alchemy training?" Sehun pursed his lips for a moment, his eyes fixed on the materials he needed to create a resonance with pure magic to prevent the primordial spirit's energy from erupting. Seeing this, Han chuckled softly. "You think just staring at that ore will help your magic power increase, huh?" He slowly raised his head, his gaze turning colder. "Did I hear that wrong?" Sehun asked curiously. "Were you just mocking me?" He smirked again and said, "There's no one else around here but us." At that moment, Ainan's voice rang out coldly. Han Ba-Moot raised his voice to remind him to limit comments unrelated to the exam. Hearing that, he slightly bowed his head and said, "I will pay more attention." Hun Huang was stunned. Ba-Moot? What the hell is that? So this guy is the judge's son? Michael Bamut. Han is so screwed. Hearing this, he smirked mischievously. No wonder they look so much alike. Hun turned to look at him with a hostile attitude, and the more he thought about it, the more ridiculous it seemed. Seeing that, Han silently wondered if he had already recognized it. He sneered and said, "My identity is that of the son of the vice principal. He is just an ordinary civilian with a humble background and the least magical power among the contestants. As for me, born into the renowned Three-Mouthed Alchemy clan, I possess a magical strength that can rival the top student of the Fifth Element system." The outcome of this confrontation was decided from the very beginning, and over here, Unha watched every move of the two people. She smiled faintly. Lapis stones and South Sea pearls, both are materials containing immense amounts of magic energy. Moreover, they are also primordial stones carrying water element spiritual power. Hearing this, Inan responded in a deep voice, as the water element magic is very volatile, making forging them extremely difficult. Mai smirked. "That's old news. Modern fake Kim forging techniques have advanced far beyond the past." Given his arrogant expression, Inchan quickly interjected. "While the fake Kim forging method isn't restricted by space or circumstances, the crafting time varies depending on the user and the type of ore. So today it only takes 30 minutes. Meanwhile, Michael keeps smiling, his sinister grin almost terrifying. He lowered his voice. Han can synthesize any type of ore. Just half an hour, a few days ago, Han spun the crystal mass using spiritual power. Inan couldn't help but feel a bit confused, wondering if it really only took 30 minutes to perform the resonance synthesis, and he couldn't help but feel a chill. What? If his skill has reached the level of completing resonance synthesis in 30 minutes, he has already surpassed second-year students, let alone freshmen. Inan's gaze flicked over him with growing suspicion, forcing tight timing for forging magic stones, preparing abundant raw materials, and imposing the method of fake Kim forging. They deliberately chose a test topic that was absolutely advantageous for Han, who was already outstanding in fake Kim forging. Inan's gaze lingers on his face. Michael is as cunning as a venomous snake. After a moment of silence, Hun's car gently exhaled. This should be fine. Onha looked curiously at him, feeling a bit surprised. Those were the eyes of the group staring intently at him, hydrate stone and red fire rock. Misha frowned slightly, clearly sensing the unstable fluctuations from the two mineral blocks. They are fire-type versions of lapis and South Sea jade with extremely high concentrations of mana. He coldly dismissed him, not knowing how skilled he was, but his ego was definitely very big. Over here, Han instinctively glanced towards the furnace. He squinted and looked at Hun's pile of materials, deliberately choosing ores that contrasted completely with his own. Thinking of this, Han chuckled softly. "You're such a fool with your petty magic. Don't even dream of controlling the Crimson Firestone." He smiles faintly, his gaze lowered. "This seems easier than I thought." Suddenly, Han's eyes changed as he turned back toward the Hun vehicle. The system notification announced that the contract inscription skill had been activated. The system sound rang out coldly, and magical light surrounded his body as the Harmony contract inscription was in effect. The seal of the contract allows the user to attach contract stones to utilize existing equipment slots. Both hands are equipped with the fire silver, with the flames slowly falling straight down from the right arm. After a brief silence, a faint smile flickered at the corner of his mouth. "Even though I still have a long way to go, showing off such trash." He paused his hammer in midair and his gaze turned cold. "That's something I absolutely cannot accept as a blacksmith." Seeing that scene, Han's assistant frantically shouted, "Did you just destroy the weapon in front of the professor? Do you think blacksmithing is a joke?" Sehun calmly called out, "Judge." Facing Inon's bewildered gaze, he nonchalantly made a proposal. "I want to redo my work." So he suddenly shouted, "Hey, contestant!" Then Ion Han crossed his arms and gave a brief but firm order to bring the remaining materials to him. Assistant Han couldn't help but be surprised, stammering, "What do you mean?" He slightly raised his eyebrows and looked at him with a cold gaze. "You're not really breaking the rules, are you? Or do you want me to get them myself?" "I won't dare to argue." Assistant Han hurriedly replied, "I will bring the materials right away." Inon approached the forge, looking directly into the smelter's eyes with a deep, steady voice filled with pressure. "Young man, he sternly reminded you that there are only 40 minutes left until the exam." He just nodded. "Yes. So do you think smashing it was the right decision?" Hearing this, Sehun's eyes quickly darted toward the destroyed metal pieces. Finally, he turned to look at Inon with an unwavering, determined gaze. "I can't submit something like that." Over here, he slightly tilts his head, his eyes reflecting deep thought before speaking slowly. "All right, do your best." After a while, Sehun's eyes once again ignite with the flame of determination. He takes a deep breath, feeling this young but fragile body, and mutters with tension. Achieving perfect training with this body is truly difficult. Thinking this through, Sehun suddenly frowns as his mana, strength, and even time are running out. The best choice in this situation is suddenly a loud sizzle ringing from the forge. A few contestants turned around in surprise. What was that sound? Someone shouted in panic. "Is that bastard pumping magic into it to ignite it? If those stones catch fire, they'll explode, so hurry up." And meanwhile, the furnace car calmly activates the flames. The entire room falls silent as the 5-colored flames burn fiercely without exploding, and someone exclaims, "Huh? No way, this crazy guy." At that moment, an invisible surge of magic suddenly struck him directly. In the face of the terrifying scene, a few people panic and shout, "Fire! Bring the fire extinguisher here quickly." Assistant Han stammers in a plea. "Professor, tell him to stop." Inon only responded indifferently, "Let him do it. Don't say anything about the contestants. Not even you are allowed to react that way." At this point, he solemnly signaled for everyone to observe the flow of the flames carefully, and he couldn't help but feel a bit bewildered. Strange. Right in front of the fire car is the 5-colored fire demon, a high-temperature flame generated by the resonance of 5 different ignitions. He smirked, his gaze fixed on the flames, demanding extremely precise control of his magic. But this was an exceptional technique that could even be used at minimal mana levels, leaving a trembling contestant in disbelief. "What? Isn't it supposed to explode?" The other person hesitated before speaking. Wait, could that be someone else pointing at the iron bar in the furnace and shouting in shock? The color of the iron ingot has already changed. Seeing that, Inon quickly understood. So that's it, he combined the ignition stones to boost the firepower and change the properties of the iron ingot. This will significantly reduce the forging time, but with only 30 minutes left, time is still very tight. Thinking this, Inon quietly affirmed that his earlier forging was excellent, but if that was all, he wouldn't finish in time. Sharp metal shards shot into the air, and seeing that, he sneered with a rare gleam in his eyes. Immediately after, Se-hun clenched the object with his bare hand and slowly placed it into the forge. He only saw Se-hun open his mouth and breathe heavily. Then he continued to strike the metal piece with the hammer. Suddenly, Se-hun's arm stopped in midair. Seeing that, he gritted his teeth, feeling his magic power completely drained and his protective layer shattered, and muttered, "Damn it, I'm out of magic and the shield is broken. Damn this weak body, I need to start training as soon as this exam is over." But somehow, Hun's palms were bleeding, fresh blood slowly spreading across his hands. In that moment, he only had one thought: I can't waste even a second. Immediately after, Se-hun once again wildly hammered down with his hammer, silently deciding to push his body to the limit. At this moment, Inan's voice rings out with 10 minutes, 3 minutes remaining. In the final minute, he clenches his voice and shouts loudly, shaking the entire space. In 1 minute, as the voice finished, Sehanort immediately raised the sword in his hand. Inan shouted again, "Stop!" Hearing that, he slightly parted his lips and exhaled. At this moment, Sehan tightened his hand beneath the table, blood continuously oozing out. At the same time, the system's screen flashes and completes. The 5-colored fire sword is now finished. You have acquired the Fire Artisan Skill Level C. The notification continues to sound in the air. The grade assessment result of the 5-colored fire sword is high. A high-quality level 5-colored fire sword, mid-high grade. A curved sword engraved with 5 flames. The flames compressed within the blade react to magic power, producing vibrant colors. This item reveals the potential of the blacksmith who forged it. The color and properties of the sword can vary slightly, depending on the nature of the magic infused into it. Someone stammers as they repeat, "The weapon's grade is high." Se-hun continued, saying, "I hope you check the detailed description in the info window. Everyone can clearly see it's a successful result." Assistant Han excitedly exclaimed, almost shouting in the jubilant atmosphere, "It's a success!" Inan waved his hand to signal, "Shut up, kid." He immediately lowered his voice. "Sorry." The scene shifts to Professor Kim Inan's office, where he anxiously glances behind him. Se-hun sits straight in front of the desk and asks with an unwavering gaze, "Is this really a sword worthy of submission?" Inan paused for a moment and then replied, "For now, that's true. Mr. Hun, I'll be honest with you." Inan spoke in a heavy, weighty tone as if carrying the burden of an era. "This place will never meet your standards." He emphasized each word sharply. "You'd better withdraw your application." Inan continued speaking in a deep tone. "Babel's reputation can be very overwhelming. However, the alchemy department no longer produces any remarkable achievements. On this side, the Hun vehicle remains silent and unresponsive." I squinted slightly and looked at him. "That's the truth I have known very well. Babel's alchemy department will close for the next 8 years due to declining standards. In the future, Vitan Academy will become the world's top forging school." After a moment of hesitation, Anon hesitantly made a suggestion. "Perhaps Vun will need to be the best place in the future." Hearing this, Se-hun immediately interjected. "Se-hun, you're wrong, Professor. The best place won't be Vun." He pointed directly at himself with a confident look and said, "It's Babel, where I am about to enroll." At that moment, Se-hun confidently declared, "Sir, you are mistaken." He looked straight at Inon without any hesitation. "The best place will not be Vunshin but Babel, where I am about to enroll." Hearing this, he was momentarily startled, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. Inon stared intently at Hun with a look of suspicion mixed with obvious surprise. Inon narrowed his eyes, his sharp gaze scrutinizing him, his voice slowly filled with challenge. In that case, he needed to become the top student in the department first. "Are you confident?" He answered without hesitation. "Of course, at least among students, no one can beat me." As soon as I finished speaking, In-hyeon's expression changed. He asked in a serious tone, "Do you know the process for selecting the new top student of the department at Babel?" Upon receiving the question, Hun quickly recited the information like a machine. "They will select the top candidate for the department through an additional exam between the 2 leading students, and from those candidates, the one who becomes the top student will be determined. That's what I know." Babel Academy divides its students into 3 broad faculties. The Combat, AGAQUF, Support, UR, Technology, BOSIPA. Each department is like a tangled web of dozens of intertwined majors, and becoming the top student in the department means you have received the highest praise across many majors and are recognized by everyone as a top talent. Returning to reality, Einon shows clear signs of tension. His arms clenched so tightly they trembled. Einon turns to look directly at the Kar Hun, his voice deepening with sincerity. "I'll say it again, not as a professor but as an experienced blacksmith. he replied with a tone of disappointment. Even if you become the top student in your department, it's still hard to expect success as a blacksmith here. Go to Vinan Academy. Inon nodded softly, as if he had made a decision on his behalf. That was the path meant for him. Sehunu looked at this man before him with rare respect, silently thinking that he was placing the future of his junior above his own position. He truly was a decent person. After a moment of silence, he once again affirmed that the environment isn't as important as I just said. His eyes lit up and his enthusiastic voice echoed, "Bao, the place I am about to enroll in will soon become the best." Inan was momentarily confused. Is that the place where he will become the best? In the end, a smile of interest appeared on his face. Inan couldn't hold back and laughed, then reached out toward the Hun car. That was a statement far beyond arrogance, but for some reason, I didn't dislike it. He reached out his hand, looking at him with sincere eyes. "I am very much looking forward to working with you." Seeing that, Sehun didn't hesitate to tighten his grip on Inan's hand. I tightened my grip on his hand, a faint smile on my lips. "Me too." Shimmering words suddenly appear right in front of him. A link to Kim Inan's target has been established. The connection to the Lee Zihun creator is now at level 1, extracting a link from the Kim Incheon target. The Lee Zihun is tightly gripping the forearm with a floating object right in the center of his palm. A metal block appears with a simmering fire inside, described by the system as a high-quality, medium-low-level fire-linked iron, a type of metal that possesses flames. It has properties similar to wood and can store fire inside. Seeing that, the two gritted their teeth. That guy? What trivial tricks is he using? Meanwhile, he continued to focus on activating the metal blocks. At this moment, the iron ore began to spin around each other. Seeing that, Zehun smirked and his eyes sparkled with flames. At the same time, the group of Yuha still stared intently at him. Over here, Maikon slightly raised an eyebrow. Is he planning to create resonance using the same attribute as the mineral? How foolish. The basic principle is to use pure magic to make the primordial minerals resonate with each other. He silently judged that if forced in that way, the magical elements would eventually explode out of control. Thinking of that, Maiko sneered. That fool, he's definitely about to cause an accident. Then suddenly, Sehun swung his arm forward, only to see it covered in scales, and the entire space fell silent. Sehun remained in the same stance. Seeing that scene, Inan and Ha quickly bowed their heads. Meanwhile, Michael widened his eyes. What is this terrifying firepower? At that moment, a sword was formed, and as soon as he saw it, Sehun gently moved his mouth to speak. The system's voice immediately echoed in his ear, indicating that the steel fire cloud equipment had been removed. The equipment processing is complete. Congratulations on successfully crafting the fire-absorbing sword sheath. Faced with the terrifying scene, Yuha widened his eyes in shock. Maikon was so stunned that his whole body froze, and he couldn't help but feel a bit bewildered. No way. Did he really succeed? The system screen immediately flashes, revealing a fire-infused sword sheath of rare grade, low quality, containing a sword infused with intense fire magic energy, capable of storing and amplifying fire attribute spiritual power, allowing the execution of a special fire-based skill. At the same time, cold sweat was rolling down Tai Duonghan's face. Had he already finished the synthesis process? What is that speed? He stared blankly at his palm, his mind screaming in chaos. This makes no sense. The magic elements should have exploded instead. Thinking of this, Han's mind grew even more chaotic. Maybe I misunderstood something. At that moment, Maiko suddenly jolted. He hurriedly shouted, "Stop! Wait if you dare to channel primal spirit energy into those magic stones." Then the sphere in Han's hand began to shake violently, his vision suddenly obscured by heat. Then suddenly, the sphere exploded, shards flying everywhere. A loud explosion echoed, and the space trembled repeatedly. That afternoon at the alchemy exam hall, the scene shifted to a room where fragments of crystals lay scattered on the ground. Over here, Han appears with a scratched face. After a moment of silence, Inan hesitantly begins to speak. Usually after a thorough evaluation, he pauses for a moment, his teeth clenched as if trying to hide his frustration. One of the two will be nominated as the top student of the department. At this point, Inan looked up directly at Han, but unfortunately, things turned out quite regrettably. In that moment, he curled up, holding his bleeding arm tightly, his gaze fixed on Han before he continued. I never expected the exam to end with one side giving up. At the same time, Michael clenched his jaw, but still tried to keep his tone calm despite his frustration. Since a student was injured during the exam, the best solution now is to cancel the results and schedule a new test day. Hearing this, "Serious?" Einon turned around abruptly. He strongly objects. We have no right to dismiss the results of a completed exam. After all, wasn't that accident caused by the student's carelessness? He tilted his head, his sharp gaze piercing straight at Enon, his voice cold to the bone. Professor Kim, it seems you care more about the grades than your student's safety. As soon as the words finished, he fell silent, a flicker of anger flashing in his eyes. At this moment, Michael stood up, and he calmly continued. Hold on, let's not talk about that. Michael slowly steps into the hall, his eyes fixed directly on Hun, as if trying to uncover his secrets. The fastest recorded resonance speed in academia is 5 minutes, but at this point, he suddenly raised his voice, almost shouting. A freshman who just stepped into the school can channel magic and achieve instant resonance. Do you think this is even feasible? The original purpose of alchemical forging was a technique created to craft weapons using only magic in situations where normal forging was impossible. Therefore, the essence of alchemy training is not the traditional forging method that controls ore by the blacksmith's life force, but rather returning to the origin of the mineral core and awakening its hidden vitality. That is truly the essence of master forging. At that moment, Sehun only had one thought. What he just did was proof of that, and it was also the answer that blacksmiths would soon discover after countless failed attempts. This is a simple method that will soon become the standard in a few years, so I have nothing to hide. But I'm not free to teach an old stubborn man who only yells and refuses to listen. In the end, he coldly said, I really don't understand what nonsense you're talking about anymore. Hearing this, Maiko's lips curled up. Just as I expected, you used cheating tricks. Gin. He chuckled dismissively, a contemptuous and bitter smile. A rookie soldier without much presence, but somehow equipped with rare gear? If you're planning to cheat, at least do something reasonable about it. Sehun frowned, his eyes darkening with insult, but his voice remained controlled. What are you talking about? At this moment, someone interrupts and cuts into the tense conversation, saying, That's right, this really doesn't make sense. I knew it. You will surely understand this matter, Director. Indeed, that is the case. This is utterly ridiculous. We need to revoke Lee Se-hun's right to compete due to cheating and organize a re-competition. Meanwhile, she nonchalantly walks past him. Ha! Inon froze in front of his sword, watching her in confusion. The principal, at this moment, Ha carefully grasped the sword as a whisper escaped from her. It's unbelievable. I only see drool dripping from Yuha's mouth. Then suddenly she points towards the Hun car. The student quickly turns away. Ha suddenly made a proposal, her eyes shining like a child discovering a treasure. Can I take a bite to try? No, just a lick is enough. Can I taste it once? As soon as the words left her mouth, Maiko almost froze in shock. Her eyes flickered with confusion as Inon stared blankly at her. Do you want to try licking it? Suddenly, a gurgling sound came from inside Yuha's stomach. Hearing that, the whole group almost froze in place. That evening, in the city center, Sehun leisurely left the academy as he stood under the blazing sunset, his mind stirring with thoughts. Indeed, Cao Tin-chin was still quite inexperienced, and his mastery had not yet reached the final stage. Thinking of this, Hoon tried to calm himself. Still, he chuckled softly, his hair fluttering in the evening breeze, a look of unmistakable satisfaction on his face as he watched Vice Principal Bamut tremble with anger. Is this real martial arts? A passerby looked at Sehun with a wary expression and whispered to his friend, He's really got a creepy smile. The friend hurriedly urged him to move quickly. Don't look into their eyes, just ignore and keep walking. Returning to Sehun, he suddenly froze. Wait, now I remember. Bamut. This name sounds so familiar, but I can't remember where I've heard it before as the car honks wildly, slapping my face and muttering nonstop. Bamut. 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 The image of the past life suddenly reappears. Lewis whispers angrily that back in Babeo, the cheap weapons he bought, after doing hard manual labor on that bastard's orders, suddenly exploded. Then he suddenly shouted, his voice filled with resentment. Because of that, I was cursed with magic burns and ended up in this miserable state. Damn it, if it were not for that guy. On the opposite side, Hun's car only looked at Luis with a cold gaze, then snapped back to reality, his footsteps stopping as a horrifying thought flashed through his mind. The blacksmith's name, who permanently injured the savage Luis Vallon, is Baut. Could Han Baut really be that person? Thinking of this, he slightly frowned. My main goal in this life is to quickly approach and reform the 3 dogs. But with the savage dog, maybe that's no longer necessary. Then Sehun sneered coldly, his eyes turning sinister, and a thought briefly crossed his mind. As long as he stops Han Bamut from running wild, Lys will never go astray. In an instant, the scene shifts to the refining department's meeting room, where angry shouts echo inside. Would you really let student Lei Zehun become the top student of our department? A representative spoke, his voice slow but filled with doubt. Professors from other departments asked, "Are you serious about this decision? Even if you intend to do that, this is a bit too much. Is there anyone here who wishes to oppose?" An elderly professor asked softly, with a slightly cautious look and a tone of compromise. "Not exactly," instead of protesting, Michael suddenly interrupted, which seems more like a sincere piece of advice. He replied calmly, "After all, Director, you've only been in office for a short time." Hearing that, Iha's eyes changed, revealing unhidden anger. Another person continued, "Yes, that's right. We acknowledge his equipment is impressive, but perhaps we need to review it more carefully." Inon immediately interrupted and said, "The professors are only saying that because they haven't seen Lee Si-hoon's fire sword shell with their own eyes. Although the craftsmanship may still be rough, observing how the magic is operated and its compatibility with the five-colored fire sword, one person couldn't help but marvel. Truly astonishing. But honestly, I still have doubts about how practical it really is." At that moment, I spoke up again. "This weapon is probably less than 60% complete according to Lee Se-hoon's expectations, and that very imperfection reveals its great potential." She did not forget to emphasize every word. After witnessing all this, the room's atmosphere seemed to freeze as Ha slowly continued, each word falling heavy like a hammer. "The upcoming performance of the top scorer Lee Si-hoon is still unacceptable to you, and immediately afterward, she declared firmly, I will resign from my position as principal." In the vast square, Lee's voice echoed from the magical amplification devices, resonating solemnly like an ancient oath. 54 years ago, the heavens bestowed the hero's tower for the evolution of humanity. The atmosphere suddenly grew tense as the illusionary image reappeared, depicting a cracked sky. His voice turned heavier. In response, hell unleashed a chaotic swamp that devoured everything alive. And while we found new opportunities to pursue, a colossal disaster also struck at the same time. Standing at the center of the hall, Layut speaks seriously with a very powerful tone. Bawel is also formed within that very turbulent flow. This is the largest academy in history, built right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. To this day, Babel has trained countless outstanding heroes. At this point, he solemnly proclaims the glory, exemplified by Emperor Louis Supt, and soon, you too will become part of their ranks. Liss's voice gradually becomes more heartfelt. Step forward. For everyone who has stepped into Babeo Academy, his voice suddenly soars, solemn and sacred like a vow on the battlefield. That is the noble mission of a hero. The person who just spoke is Emperor Louis Supt, standing quietly among the crowd, his eyes silently observing Luis in the stands, whispering with calculated intent. When seen up close like this, he appears to be a very kind-hearted person. Although in reality he is not exactly a kind and pure old man, the host steps forward, raising the microphone. Next, we will have the performances of this year's top students. Please welcome the top students from each faculty to the stage. Upon receiving the invitation, the group of male and female students took turns walking onto the stage. Hu looked at the proud figures walking up, his gaze darkening as a flash of past memories flickered through his mind. The top student of the department? In my past life, I wondered why some people were so arrogant just because they had good grades at the academy. At that moment, the host loudly announced, "Now let's begin the skill demonstration." He glanced around, a forced smile creeping at the corner of his mouth. Seeing this, I think I understand the problem. At the same time, the host announced loudly, "The display item for today's performance is none other than this masterpiece, ladies and gentlemen." As soon as the words finished, Model 9 Automaton appeared. Seeing it, he excitedly introduced a golem from the factory, Model 9 Automaton. It even has combat abilities comparable to a hero from Company C on this side. The gaze is fixed intently on Automaton Model 9. He chuckled softly, intrigued. Is it a combat-specialized automaton? Since it's not equipped with any specific weapons, I guess it will use martial arts. The host reaches out toward the entrance of the arena. The first performer is the representative from the combat department, and his voice rings out dramatically. The performance will be carried out by Aga Kuf's top student, Ja Myers, the top student of Aga Kuf Z Myers. Immediately after, Z and the 9th model automaton appeared in the audience, as Hun Nyo narrowed his eyes, watching the dark-haired teenager step forward. If it's Jay, he seems to be the third son of the Myers family. Rumor has it he's a bit of a weirdo for pursuing martial arts. Although born into a family famous for martial arts, it seems the rumors are true. Just then, the announcer loudly declared, "Then we will proceed immediately." On the opposite side, Automaton's eyes lit up. That was also the moment he signaled to Bartino, starting the fight right now. As soon as the words finished, it quickly pushed off the ground with its toes, only to see Automaton rushing straight at Jack. It immediately threw a punch. He immediately spun around to dodge while Automaton wildly swung his fist toward him. Later, Jack leapt down below, his toes skimming the ground. He looked up at it. Now it's my turn to show what I can do. After saying that, Zoot hesitated before rushing straight at the automaton. He clenched his fist tightly and immediately punched straight into its body. Seeing this scene, the nearby students were almost stunned. Over here, Jack is still frantically attacking the automaton. Sehun widened his eyes at the incredible speed of the outburst. What is going on? I clearly remember he died early while still at rank A in his mid-20s. Thinking about this, he couldn't help but feel a bit confused. With this level of skill, he must be a genius who appears only once every 10 years in Babeo. Hun silently wondered why in his previous life he only reached rank A. Turning to Jay, he smirked coldly. With just this much, at the final minute, he swung his hand to end the battle with the automaton, only to see its head rise into the air and then fall to the ground. Jack retracted his fist and stood upright in the dissipating dust. He let out a soft breath. It's been a long time since I last moved so freely. The host's voice trembled slightly, almost shouting with excitement. That was an incredibly spectacular and amazing performance. Student Z, he defeated an automaton with the strength of a C-ranked hero in just one breath. The host turned to Jack, unable to hide his admiration. Indeed, the caliber of the top student from Aga QUF is different. Meanwhile, Hun's car slightly frowned, thinking to himself that he truly made a huge explosion right from the start, and the next person will definitely face quite a lot of pressure. The proud voice echoes again, this time with a completely different tone, calmer and more majestic. Up next, please welcome the top student of the UR support department. The performer will be In Erica, a student. He slightly raises his eyebrows as he watches the long-haired brunette step forward. So, she's the top student of UR. The pressure. There's no need to worry about that. Erica, the eldest daughter of the Ino family, one of the 3 most prestigious clans in Japan. She wasn't a conqueror of heights, but she built a reputation as an S-rank hero wielding a mythic weapon. Yet in the end, she was corrupted into a demon and slaughtered by her own family. At this moment, Hun silently decided that since her future would be worn down into a demon, forming a relationship would bring no benefit to her. Then suddenly, Erica turned her head to look at him, and seeing that, he unfroze for a moment, his eyes bewildered as he looked at her. He looked innocently at Erica's footsteps, his heart tangled like threads. What's going on? Did she just look in my direction? At the same time, the host announced in a serious tone that the automaton used for this performance is Model 9 equipped with armor. With a defense ability 1.5 times greater than the previous version, he excitedly shouted, shaking the entire space. Let's wait and see what surprises in-out students will bring. Then suddenly, Erica pulls out a crow. Her eyes suddenly glow with a demonic light as she softly mutters a command. Advance! As soon as the words finished, the crow immediately flew straight out, soaring into the sky and circling around the automaton. Faced with the sudden scene, Hun was momentarily stunned. A raven-like figure. At the same time, the automaton raised its head to look at it, its eyes suddenly shining with a strange red light. Over here, he watches the automaton closely. His greed makes him see that the automaton has shifted into a fully defensive state, making it very difficult to break through its sturdy protection, especially since it specializes in defense. Returning to Erica, she slightly parted her lips. Suddenly, the crow spread its wings and extended its legs to reveal sharp claws. One of the crow's eyes also glowed with a blue light. Under the sunlight, it spread its wings wide. Then suddenly the crow sped straight down toward the automaton. Below, the entire space falls into chaos. Dust flying everywhere. Witnessing the scene, Hun is almost stunned. On this side, cracks have appeared on the automaton's body and electricity is surging out. When did it develop a hole? Immediately, the automaton's body collapsed to the ground. Seeing that, Erica waved her hand, and the crow turned back, cheering once again. Incredible. Truly extraordinary. With just one strike, the armored automaton collapsed. She pierced through a C-ranked opponent. The crowd cheered happily. Erica is amazing! Returning to Hun's car, he forced a smile. With the atmosphere so tense, I feel like we'll be booed if we just show our weapons and end it there. Just then, the announcer loudly announced, and now, please welcome Lee Se-hun, the top student of the BOSPA Technology Department. At this moment, the host enthusiastically introduces the next segment, featuring the top student from the BOSPA Technology Department, Lee Se-hun. Meanwhile, Performance Supervisor Luis is watching the battle on the screen. He can't help but chuckle softly, impressed by the skills of this new batch of top students. How long has it been since we last saw a top scorer from the refining class? After saying that, Lai couldn't help but feel a bit worried. Will the pressure be too much for that young man? Next to him is Performance Supervisor number 2, Principal Ruha-Ha, who confidently assures that nothing will go wrong. The crowd on the stands buzzed as Hun stepped into the spotlight, and the host smiled knowingly. Will he deliver a performance that surpasses the explosion of Jack and Erica just now? Someone couldn't help but marvel at how handsome he is. The host suddenly became curious. Could it be a rare-grade equipment? "This is really rare in the refining department," the female student excitedly exclaimed. "Grat Freshman." At that moment, the Hunduk Quat drew his sword from its sheath, swinging it forcefully to the side, his eyes fixed intently on his opponent. At that moment, the image of the sword appeared right behind the Hun vehicle along with numerous functions. A male student spoke, his eyes half admiring, half doubtful. "Yes, a new student who can craft a rare item is truly amazing." The person next to him hesitated briefly, but compared to other faculties, it still seems to lack innovation. The murmurs spread as a few students looked disappointed. A rare item that seems a bit plain, huh? Anyway, the previous departments had already shown off too extravagantly, so the male student couldn't help but feel a bit confused. I also don't know what he intends to demonstrate in this performance anymore. "I really want to know," from a corner of the audience, Maiko gently smirks, her eyes shining with ambition. Fate is on our side now. He stared menacingly at the Hun car, and with this band, the Principal Bosapa's chair will definitely be mine. In contrast to Michael, his calm face was as steady as the sea. Returning to the stands, the host quickly announced to prepare for this performance. Number 10. With power comparable to a D-class hero, he suddenly interrupted. "No." Hun's car lifts its head, its eyes shining like a blade drawn from its sheath. The request caused the entire square to fall silent. "Please switch to model number 8 and kindly equip it with additional armor." The host nearly dropped the list from his hand, stammering in shock. "What? What is he asking for? Sometimes the 8th denominator can withstand attacks from a B-class hero, so why does he want it to wear armor too?" He hesitated for a moment, and the host continued cautiously. "It's really hard to prepare such a request on the spot." He wondered silently, "Are you trying to ruin this performance?" At that moment, Ainon spoke up. "I've taken care of everything beforehand," and a sudden metallic entity appeared in response to his voice. He looked up at the automat. This automat is now fully armored. Seeing that, the host was momentarily stunned. Did he already prepare it? He looked around nervously, hesitating in his tone. "If you've made up your mind like that, then at the same time..." The Karhun turned to look at Ainon. He remained silent, his eyes filled with anticipation as he looked at him. From the VIP stand, the host excitedly shouted, "Then just go all out." He forced a strained smile. "Now, I have no idea what will happen in the match either." Immediately after, the host loudly announced the start. As soon as the bell signaling the start of the battle rings out, Inon tenses up, silently whispering to himself, "Just go wild." Sihun smirked. "All right." He glanced at the stands where Inon was watching, a faint smile in his eyes. "Maybe I should live up to his expectations a little." The sword in his hand radiated a fierce spiritual energy as the Hun gently bowed, the energy swirling into a circle. Witnessing this, the Ret cheered excitedly. "It's crazy." At the same time, Ha sneered dismissively, "All show and no real strength. What can a magicless person do anyway?" The fiery energies within the 5-colored fire sword are inherently conflicting, and this explosion could harm the user if not controlled with immense magic power. However, by utilizing the fire energy storage ability of the fire-absorbing sword sheath and the technique of inserting fire chains inside, Zehun muttered as he opened his mouth, the energy charging process was complete. On the opposite side, the automaton had activated its shield while he swung his sword forcefully to ignite the flames. The move just performed caused the entire arena to shake. A thought formed in Sehun's mind. If he triggered a fire, the fire spirits trapped inside would be unleashed, his eyes fixed intently on the automaton's shield. Sehun muttered in the decisive moment as they all exploded. On the stands, Maikon's face turned pale as she seemed to realize something was wrong, while the host was stunned in shock. What the hell is this crazy guy trying to do? After a while, the thick dust gradually cleared. Zehun slowly sheaths his sword, then exhales rapidly, glancing along the cut on the field, wondering if he might have gone a bit too far. Seeing the urgent situation, the host appeared anxious, and the technical support team quickly arrived at the main hall immediately. He hurriedly announced that the competition was over after that performance. It was only a while later that the sound of high heels echoed throughout the hall. Inside, Zehun looked confused. As soon as he saw him, Ha bowed slightly. "I'm very sorry for making you wait after calling you here. I just had to help clean up the mess at the arena." Sehun scratched his head awkwardly. "Please don't mind. I should be the one apologizing. I'm sorry for causing that scene in the main hall." I suddenly lowered my voice. I should have controlled my strength better. She looked a bit confused. "What are you talking about? The Hun vehicle student, he asked back in confusion. Do you think I brought you here to scold you? Unha immediately denied, of course not. No. The real reason I invited you here was because at that moment, her stomach once again made a sound. The strange noise made Hoon slightly cough to hide his embarrassment. I mean, in the end, she proposed that I be willing to pay 10 times the market price. Ha looked straight at him with a determined gaze. Will you agree to give up the 5-colored fire sword and its fire-inlaid sheath to me? Hearing this, Ze-hun widened his eyes in an instant. What? At that moment, the connection with Yu-ha was established. That really is a wonderful set of equipment. Suddenly, the system screen lit up right in front of Ze-hun. A contract with Ruha has been established. The level of the contract with the creator of the vehicle Hun is now level 1. He widened his eyes, his pupils trembling slightly in amazement. Could it be so fast? In my previous life, I had to dedicate my weapons to her many times for this connection to form. Ze-hun replied awkwardly, Thank you, Your Majesty. He silently reassured himself that this was still a good fortune. The magical runes appeared before his eyes, and the system voice echoed steadily, executing the contract extraction, sounding more solemn as if announcing a rare treasure. Proceed to extract the contract from the target, Ru-ha, a high-grade, top-quality, perfect divine contract that consumes other metals to generate heat, corroding any iron material it touches, and absorbing its core into itself, absorbing iron to produce mineral blood. Ze-hun gazed blankly at the object before him. So, it's over. At that moment, Ru-ha once again lunged forward. Are you planning to sell that item to me? He immediately shook his head. No, not at all. She slightly raised her eyebrows at this. But you just said it was finished. Suddenly, a sound came from outside. Sir Principal, I am Kim In. He looked up, his voice clear and formal, like issuing an urgent order. The principal of the academy announces that the award ceremony will begin immediately. Inan turns to Ze-hun and asks, Can I take student Lai with me? She nodded softly, her gaze deep and still like a moonless night lake. I understand. Ze-hun quickly heads outside. He secretly turns back. See you again later then. Over here, Yuha's stomach kept growling, in the heart of Babello Academy, the glass main building, Maruk's residence. The scene shifts inside the mansion as Ze-hun hurriedly follows Incheon from behind, walking while quietly reminding him with a more serious gaze than usual. Please remember to show proper manners when standing before the principal of the academy. He not only generously overlooked your damage to the auditorium during the performance. Inan paused for half a beat before continuing, but also belongs to a completely different level from us. You don't need to worry too much, teacher. Ze-hun quickly stepped inside and looked straight at the young man in front of him. You must be student Lai Se-hun, Emperor Thang Hua, the principal of Lai Academy. Before I turned back time, he was the hero who sacrificed himself in the lone battle against the demon god, annihilating the heavens, one of the 6 great demon gods. His trembling appearance suddenly resurfaced in his memory, and a wave of admiration welled up inside him. He truly is a perfectionist. Lai spoke up at this moment, saying that the weapons he demonstrated today were all very impressive. He suddenly sighed and said, I can't say I have no regrets, but I have high expectations for you. Hearing this, Ze-hun suddenly froze in place, and the mountain of regret in his heart burned like smoldering fire in the forge. Even though I was mentally prepared, I still felt like throwing the 5-colored fire sword and the fire-absorbing sword sheath into the forge again. At that moment, Lee made a proposal. To recognize your talent and effort, I will grant you 2 rewards. He asked seriously, Tell me what you need. Ze-hun blinked in surprise for the first time, the astonishment clearly visible on his usually calm face. Getting 2 rewards? He replied quickly, his voice clear and without hesitation. I hope the rewards can help increase my mana and memory capacity. As soon as I finished speaking, Lift raised his arm into the air and a symbol appeared in mid-air. The vehicle stares intently at the 2 black obsidian treasures. Hero rank. Top quality. A piece of sock with ink-like light falls from the night sky, capable of swallowing almost everything, except darkness, and can absorb magic from anything that touches the crystal. Dream ivory, hero rank. On average, it is the tusk of the dream-eating 3-toed sloth. It contains illusionary magic that can cross the boundary between reality and dreams, connecting with dreams through illusionary magic sources, and he looks confused. This is black obsidian gemstone, but dream ivory is much harder to find. Ze-hu smirked. Currently a bit difficult to control, but I already have an idea on how to use them. He watched him for a long moment, his voice softer but still commanding. Are you satisfied with them? Huo-hun bowed slightly in gratitude. They are truly amazing. As soon as he left, a voice echoed, "What are you thinking about?" The mirror, God, grew suspicious about only that boy receiving 2 rewards. This behavior is not like his usual style at all. Lai replied casually, "I gave them simply because that child has the ability to understand them." Hearing the response, it couldn't help but marvel. "So, that's how it is? I keep feeling like he's just a little old man inside." He spoke in a deep voice. That only proves that he has such profound inner strength that even you can sense it. Lai watched the car's shadow disappear down the ancient corridor. Moreover, even I cannot fully understand the depth of that young boy. The scene focuses on the Maru estate. Inside the classroom, the group of boys kept discussing, and at this moment, a cheerful student approached Han. "Hey Han, do you want to go eat somewhere?" He refused immediately without hesitation. "Sorry, I have a meeting with Senior HW today." The boy was stunned speechless after hearing that. "Meeting with the top student of the BIP department?" Han casually replied, "It's just because our families are close, so we often meet. He said he would give me some advice about life at the academy, so that's why we met." He moved a little closer. "Then if possible, I could go with you." Just then, the car entered inside. He glanced at Han with a cold look. As soon as he saw Zehun, the entire classroom fell silent. His gaze once again fixed firmly on Han, sending a shiver down his spine. "What's with that creepy look of yours?" "Over here!" H grits his teeth in frustration, his pride wounded. "Damn it, do I have to admit defeat to a lowly person like him again?" The classroom door opens forcefully as Inon strides in confidently, his serious gaze sweeping the room. Everyone quickly takes their seats. He looked around the classroom. "All right, it seems everyone is now present." Inon looks at the class and continues. "Since this is the first lesson, we will start with a self-introduction." He seriously introduces this metal bar as a material called reflective alloy. It is dozens of times more sensitive to magic than ordinary ores. That's why if you channel magic into it this way. At this point, Inon emphasized each word. A weapon in your mind will be easily formed. At the same time, Hugh's vehicle stared at him with admiration. It's no coincidence that he is on the list of the top 100 artisans in the world. But when checking the contract stone, I vaguely realized that this person is truly a talented individual. Because of its highly sensitive nature, it is difficult to use as a real combat weapon, but it reflects subconscious traits, helping the user see themselves clearly. He suddenly raised his voice, saying, "That's why we call reflective alloy gear alternative selves." The self-introduction of the training department will be replaced by the creation of these copies. In the final minute, Inchin reminded everyone that the finished products would be displayed at the main building for a week. So, do your best. The group of students all responded in unison. "Yes, sir." Their eyes then focused on Nam Sin. He quietly thought that this reflective alloy must be worth over 10 million military coins per piece. Truly Bobby's style. Even the greeting is so luxurious. At the same time, Han jolted when he grabbed the sword, and seeing that, he sighed endlessly. "Really?" Zihun turned around and sighed helplessly. "There's no one here with the most important talent." Just then, Inon spoke up. "Finally, I invite you to a drink, Sehun. I do have you." Suddenly, a bold idea came to mind. If I was going to do it, would I dare to go all out? Then suddenly, a huge explosion erupted right inside the classroom. At the same time, a male student sneered sarcastically. "There are really a lot of people gathering here, probably because of Lai Hun's charm." He continued with a sarcastic and annoyed tone. "It's funny how they keep praising that his status is so different, when he's only a first-year student." The person next to him nodded in agreement, completely right. The boy leaned in closer and gave a slight nod. "That's also what I wanted to say." The two of them looked up at the object. Inon's words suddenly echoed, despite an unusual incident during the creation process where it absorbed 19 nearby display alloys. But we believe that this actually demonstrates Lee Se-hoon's talent, so we decided to display it as it is. A male student chuckled softly, his sarcastic voice echoing among the whispering crowd. That was definitely just a coincidence caused by some skill or other. The person next to him tilted their chin toward the artwork, eyes full of suspicion and envy. "Isn't it just because he used too many display alloys at once?" The male student interrupted, "And it's been a long time since we've seen a top scorer from the refining department. Maybe they're trying to promote him as a true genius." Just as Erica suddenly spoke up, "I have a slightly different opinion." Jet then stepped forward, sneering. "I also agree with your point of view." At this point, Jack gritted his teeth and said, "The current amount of alloy displayed there still isn't enough to fully showcase Lee Ze-hoon's true potential." Meanwhile, in another scene, we see the hammer strike down hard, and at this moment, Lee Ze-hoon's face is covered in cold sweat. The man softly lowered his voice, a look of disbelief in his eyes. Did you manage to start the timer at that moment? Until now, not even a tiny error of 0.01 seconds has occurred. Assistant Han looked at him in amazement. What more can we possibly teach such an exceptional child? He chuckled softly and said, Let's just forget about his part and move on. Anyone want to see a demonstration? After a while, Assistant Han announced that it was over and the class dispersed. Over here, Zehun's gaze remains fixed on the hammer. Then he stares intently at the metal pieces on the table. Without hesitation, Zehun raises the hammer once again. Assistant Han suddenly spoke. Are you planning to smash it? He immediately stopped and bowed politely to the assistant instructor. We need to hand over these items after this week's training session, so please don't damage them. Zehun tilted his head. Do we really have to hand them over? Assistant Han looked disappointed. Do you think students have the budget for activities? Bei will provide support based on the number of weapons sold on the external market. He pondered for a moment before questioning. So, you're feeling dissatisfied right now. Is it because of your physical condition or your mana levels? Faced with the unexpected question, Hun chuckled softly. My biggest problem right now is my body. At that moment, a complicated thought arose in his mind. To create training tools, I need to perform obsidian forging, but I lack the stamina to carry out that task. The assistant tilted his head, his voice suggesting a tempting shortcut. If that's really necessary for training, after a moment of thought, he came up with a plan. Wouldn't using enhancement charms be faster than physical training? Hearing this, he couldn't help but laugh. I had never even considered that option because it was the way I always avoided before going back in time. Zehun's lips curled up as if he had just found a new path. Looking back, since I have traveled back to the past and am currently facing physical issues, I can totally proceed with the obsidian training while under the influence of the enhancement spell. He nodded slightly, very grateful for the helpful advice just given. Assistant Han shook his head lightly, nothing serious. Then Zehun gently raised his head, his gaze shifting down to the sword in his hand. While you're forging, don't forget to remind yourself that you're using too much mana compared to what's necessary. Lower it to about 70% of your current level and focus all your power on just one point. Before leaving, Zehun confirmed confidently that this approach would bring better results for him at this moment. Hearing this, he forced a smile. A new student just pointed out something to the teaching assistant? Then Assistant Han turned to look at the hammer. At this moment, the sky is getting hotter and hotter. Bao always encourages proactive self-study for each student. The system voice announces that the door is opening, and the sound of the instructor's voice continues to reach you. You have the right to register for courses from other departments, or even take dozens of subjects in a single semester. However, you are required to complete all your major courses, and if you accumulate 3 failing grades, you will be expelled immediately. Everything is completely free, but you must take responsibility for your choices. Suddenly, the announcer's voice echoed, and the next stop was UR, the area designated for the magic department. At this moment, Zehun calmly steps out of the train. As he looked up, Erica suddenly appeared, blocking the way with a teasing tone. Hey, stop blocking the way and get out of the way. Zehun frowned. Who are these people? Why did they suddenly come here and cause trouble? He raised his voice and warned, You are the ones who should be getting out of the way. Hearing this, the male student's body trembled with anger. Erica stepped closer and asked curiously, Where are you planning to go? Before Erica's unexpected action, the male student was stunned and confused. Miss Erica, over here, please honestly respond to the magic department. I was wondering if there's any minor subject I could register for. Seeing that, she decisively offered, I will show you the way then. He hurriedly interjected, Miss Erica, the meeting will start very soon. She decisively said, You all go on your own. The male student looked anxious, but the seniors had told him they truly wanted her to be there. Erica glanced over with a cold look, her voice calm but firm, leaving no room for argument. I'm not interested in caring. They returned to the Hun car with unwavering eyes, then quickly left, despite the male student calling out, Miss Erica. As the area fell silent, Erica turned to him with a much more serious look. So, what kind of auxiliary magic are you actually looking for? Si-Hun replied slowly, I am trying to learn more about enhancement charms. She continued to ask, What specific type of enhancement effect? He answered calmly, something that can enhance physical abilities, but must not interfere with the training process. Hearing this, Erica suggested, Let's try using a barrier spell. The car suddenly stopped. A barrier spell. Isn't that kind of magic usually only used for defense? She explained slowly, It can be very versatile depending on how you use it. Erica takes out a thin piece of paper from her pocket and gestures. I'll give an example like this. She hands the paper to him. Try tearing this paper and see how it goes. Zihu took it and felt a thin layer of magic covering the surface, feeling a bit surprised. Did she just increase its durability? No, actually that's not quite it. It still retains its original properties, but automatically becomes much more durable when subjected to a strong external force. Zehun stared intently at the piece of paper, analyzing how this technique was perfectly suited for forging work because it required extremely precise control. Erica chuckled softly. For such complex applications, you might need the help of a professor. He looked at the piece of paper with a naive expression, suspicion growing in his heart. Hey, this magic formula looks very familiar. Meanwhile, she kept talking non-stop. The professor who teaches barrier creation is married to someone from my family branch, so I can introduce you to him directly if you'd like. At this point, Erica softly raised her voice to change the subject. Then suddenly the Hun car beeped. It's him! The paper template was immediately torn apart. In the face of that scene, she couldn't help but feel a bit confused. Were you able to understand my family's sealing magic in such a short time? And she even managed to dispel it? That morning at UR University's magic department, the appearance of the Hun car beside her right in the campus stunned everyone, drawing curious glances and endless whispers. Why is Erica hanging out with someone from another faculty like that? I think I saw them together yesterday as well. If I remember correctly, they also appeared together at the recent exhibition. Surrounded by curious glances and whispers spreading across the campus, he could only sigh helplessly. It's true that false rumors are spreading quickly. Don't these people just like to interfere in others' affairs? It's funny, if Erica really had feelings for me, there would already be a connection between us. Anyway, I wonder what criteria they use to select students for the class. I registered for this class, but they require us to take a test first. Erica immediately spoke up to introduce herself, saying this is the location where the barrier structure test will take place. Zehun started glancing around suspiciously and asked, "Is this the forest?" The other contestants kept cursing in frustration. Damn it, which remote village is it in? He quietly observes the forest ahead and thinks to himself, are we playing a treasure hunt game to take the test or what? This is starting to get troublesome. Could it be that they used the barrier to hide something? Or what? When Zehun accidentally stepped on a strange spot, the barrier surrounding the forest instantly shattered. As soon as the barrier shattered beneath Hun's car, the assistant appeared and calmly announced that you have passed the test. He was so shocked he could only gasp in disbelief. What do you mean? Robo looked up at the assistant standing by the desk with a skeptical expression. Is that young lady showing interest in our top student again? Professor Robert Barry, an expert in barrier structure at UR Magic Department, then took out his phone and replied, yes, take a look at this list. He glanced at the list on the assistant's phone with a doubtful sigh. I'm also surprised that she suddenly applied for such a basic class. Thanks to that appeal, the number of applicants has tripled. But I didn't feel happy at all because of the offer from the in-family heir. So this year, we will add a test using the Labyrinth of Lost Souls. The Labyrinth of Lost Souls is a type of barrier that distorts the senses and causes disorientation. Even though it is a basic barrier, those unfamiliar with magic might not even notice its presence. Witnessing the scene before him, Robert froze in shock, silently marveling at his true abilities. Even without the young lady lending a hand, could he really have broken through the maze purely by instinct? He announced clearly in front of the crowd that all of you here have passed the first round. From now on, we will divide the class based on the second test. A student confidently raised their hand and asked for permission to go first. That student was secretly calculating in their mind that this was a golden opportunity to impress Erica. Robert nodded in agreement. All right, the second test is also very simple. Use your magic to deactivate the barrier in front of you. I will judge based on how quickly you complete it. So do it quickly and accurately. The competition begins. A barrier uses a spider web with a central spider acting as the core. This spider constantly hides when it senses magic flowing through the silk threads. As long as it exists, this network will regenerate itself forever. Witnessing the barrier before him, the volunteer student suddenly froze, his mind racing with tense calculations. To trap the entire magic structure in the usual way, my mana is not enough. If that's the case, I will use speed to overwhelm it. He looked at his watch and said sternly, you have 2 minutes and 23 seconds. You need to focus more on understanding the structure of the barrier. Anyway, the result isn't too bad. The student glanced softly at the young lady, hoping for some encouragement, but Erica's face remained emotionless, as if the surface of a calm lake, leaving the student only able to bow his head and say, "Thank you, Professor." At that moment, Robert ordered firmly, "Next person, come on, next person, hurry up." After everyone has tried, he helplessly confirms that all of you will start from the basic class. Now, here is Erica Inout's performance. Go ahead and start. she stepped forward with an unusually calm demeanor. Erica gently lifts a finger to touch the barrier, which suddenly blazes brightly and shatters into 100 pieces. In the silent space, the faces of the students around were stunned with amazement. Soon after, whispers began to spread like waves crashing. How could she be so unbelievably fast? She broke down the entire formula and completely shattered the barrier. Indeed, the top student's level is different. As the praise still echoed, he slowly approached. Robert looked at the stopwatch and then spoke coldly. 22 seconds. Well done. But if she had used the standard disarming method, she might have been 2 seconds faster. Unfazed by Robert's strictness, Erica simply bowed her head calmly in response. I will remember that. He said nothing more. His sharp eyes glanced at the next candidate as a silent warning of his high standards. Then he clearly called out the name, finally saying Lee Se-hun. Seeing Se-hun step out, Robert quietly assessed in his mind that there was nothing outstanding about him. Instead of rushing to cast spells or perform preparatory moves, he calmly sat down right in front of the barrier. The murmurs of the students grew louder. What the hell is he doing? Doesn't he know the exam is timed? Hun remains calm as he sits there, his gaze unwavering, carefully analyzing the layers of the energy barrier. This barrier has traits very similar to Mothak, namely the ability to self-repair and return to its original state if the impact hasn't reached a certain threshold. Therefore, to forge this type of stone, the blacksmith must channel all the energy simultaneously with precise timing. Robert finally lost his patience. He strides over to question him. What exactly are you planning to do? Listen to me. Her voice cuts in. Just let him go. Faced with Erica's powerful demand, he could only stand silently in helplessness. Robert said nothing more, his lips pressed tightly as he stepped back. In the absolute silence, Se-hun's mind was still racing at maximum speed. So if I do this, can I keep the accumulated energy inside the stone? Instead of shattering or vanishing like usual, as soon as my finger touches the weak point, the entire barrier suddenly erupts in a fierce blaze. Amidst the thick atmosphere of shock, Se-hun spoke only in a normal, indifferent tone, as if he had just finished a grueling task. Done, that's all it takes, he thought to himself. I can now forge the Mak-Thak. Se-hun rises, stepping over the shattered debris with a nonchalant attitude, as if its existence never mattered. The barrier just shattered, he stands up decisively and walks away, ignoring all the gazes around him. The marketplace announcer looked at the clock and announced that the time was 7 minutes and 45 seconds. Robert watched Se-hun's back quietly leave, thinking that how long it takes him doesn't really matter. This time he might have taken 7 minutes, but next time he encounters a similar barrier, he'll destroy it in an instant. He is not just breaking the barrier, but has created a formula to counter that magic himself. She watched his lonely figure with eyes full of worry. Erica silently thought that if his divine forging skills were combined with magic, she truly feared what kind of terrifying creation he might produce. A letter arrived informing that we had received a mid-level forging application using hero grade or higher materials from first-year student Li Shun. According to Rule 8 in the Forging Workshop Safety Regulations, anyone wishing to supervise should contact us. The instructor looked at the computer screen while pondering, wondering how many people would come this time. Suddenly, messages flooded in, surprising him greatly. Will everyone respond so quickly? However, not a single person from Vice Principal Michael's faction submitted an application. Rumor has it that the atmosphere there is very tense because his son has been demoted to second class. Looks like the rumors are true, the instructor starts to think, so I should begin choosing someone. He was so shocked that his eyes widened in disbelief when he read the message saying the principal would personally oversee Li Sun's intermediate training session. Suddenly, Ha unexpectedly appeared and spoke up. It's been a long time since I last saw you. Student Lee Se-hun. He froze, feeling a deep shock inside. You're so busy, yet you personally came all the way here? The principal replied casually. I came to see for myself your true abilities. Lee Se-hun didn't look directly at Yu Ha, but simply replied, If things have come to this, I have no choice but to devote all my effort to crafting it. With that, he immediately began working on the spot. The first step in forging the magic stone is to process the stone. And in fact, there are many methods to handle this type of stone. But the most difficult technique among them is the night process. You have to place the stone in a completely dark space with no light, and use magic to separate impurities from the ink-like stone, which is spreading like water. In this process, just a small mistake in manipulating the magic force can cause the stone to instantly harden and become useless. It may sound easy, but in reality, it's no different from reconfiguring matter itself. She remains completely silent, observing every movement of the Hun while her hands move rhythmically, and Hun's mind begins calculating coldly. Is 1/4 the best limit I can achieve? If I lower it further, its performance won't be enough. Step 2. He begins to unleash the blazing red fire directly from his palm. The intense heat engulfs the metal block, causing the surrounding space to twist with each breath of the furnace. He channels mana through the deep red flames to extract the suitable firepower. This stabilized flame is called wild fire flow, and it maintains the temperature exactly as it was when it was first formed. Step 3. Use a hammer wrapped in wild fire flow to strike the heavy inkstone forcefully, and the key is not to rest until the deformation diminishes, thanks to the properties of that flame. Standing there watching the blazing red fire, Unha silently thought that even if he is immune to fire, it doesn't mean he doesn't feel pain. How much has he worn himself down? He swung his hammer repeatedly with a strange enthusiasm. While the sound of the hammer echoed throughout the forge, Erica quietly stood in a corner of the school grounds, waiting for Zehun. Despite Zehun's reckless enthusiasm, she stood nearby looking quite indifferent. Anha kept yawning sleepily. She stood there looking exhausted and dejected. 4 hours of forging practice had passed. The attributes of the inkstone after absorbing the fire to the limit are starting to change. He sighed in relief, thinking to himself. The deformation has stopped, melting the processed inkstone and pouring it into the pre-prepared mold. The tired, gloomy look on Yuha's face immediately vanished, replaced by a look of astonishment. Is she thinking of casting instead of forging? The properties will change because darkness lies deep inside the mold. What the hell is he thinking? Just as Shu-hun was about to start the 4th step, Uha suddenly spoke up to stop him. Wait, ignoring her firm warning, he still didn't stop. In his mind, only numbers and magic structures were running, slowing down the changes in the inkstone with a formula that breaks barriers and creates a magic flow in that brief moment. As the magic circuit just took shape in the brief moment of transformation of the inkstone, everything suddenly fell silent. Revealed in Zehun's final crafted hand was a deep black, somber ink spider bracelet. As soon as the bracelet took shape, a mechanical sound rang out, breaking the silence. The system notification suddenly appeared before his eyes. The item endures. The ink spider bracelet is complete. To break stereotypes, a bold challenge that leaves no one behind is necessary. Although the potential of the material has not been fully tapped, the Black Soul Thread skill crafted by the Blacksmith is truly top tier. You have acquired the Black Soul Thread skill. The Ink Spider Bracelet, a high-quality sacrifice-level accessory. On average, each bracelet is crafted by forging heavy inkstones. It has the attribute of absorbing the magic power of the wearer, and its weight will increase accordingly with that magic power. Absorbing and storing the magic power of the wearer can activate the explosive ring skill. At this moment in the silent space, Zehun let out a sigh of relief and spoke. Success. In the silence, Yuha's hungry stomach suddenly growled loudly, as if announcing itself to the world. He paused, glancing with a puzzled expression. While she blushed shyly, hurriedly covering her stomach with her hand as if trying to hide her body's betrayal, Hun could only look up to the sky and sigh in helplessness, as if witnessing a legend collapse before his eyes, then observed it and offered his subjective opinion. Could this be a resonance phenomenon? It's impressive. It looks simple, but its power isn't that strong. If done correctly, we can aim to create an equipment set effect. He remains calm, as if nothing has happened, slowly placing the item in front of her and saying, I apologize for not being able to give you a weapon while you're troubled because of me. I don't know if this can help as a snack to soothe your palate, but at least please accept it. Zehun said nothing more, just kept that stance and stared intently at Ua, who took the item from his hand and suddenly activated her unique Soulforge skill. Anha gently tastes it and then comments, This is quite delicious. He blurted out and asked again. Really? She replied casually. Yeah, metaphorically speaking, its flavor is like crispy fried bits. Zehun thought to himself, feeling relieved. Do I have a habit of crafting everything to Ru-Wu's taste? Maybe I can more easily strengthen my bond with her. He gently smiled at Wu-Ha and softly said, I'm glad you like it. She nodded slightly in agreement and then spoke. Of course, though it's a bit regretful to eat this dish while those items are displayed in front of us. By the way, when do you plan to deal with the 5-colored sword and the fire-embedded sword sheath? Zehun gently shook his head, his eyes still calm as he replied, I have no intention of selling them right now. Anha hesitated slightly, her face showing confusion mixed with a bit of impatience. Then she pressed further, So sorry, what do you mean? Are the prices still not high enough? I will keep them for the conquest class. Zehun gently smiles to himself, thinking that hunger is indeed the best seasoning. He nodded slightly as a promise, and then said that once I had the proper equipment to give to him, I would be the first to inform him. Her face flushing with embarrassment, she brushed off her awkwardness to regain composure and said, I look forward to that. Is the training complete now? He replied, yes. Then Eon Ha spoke up to remind us, let's go now, the staff will come to clean up. Hun's voice was hoarse as he replied, luckily, I have no energy left to do any cleaning. As he was walking, he suddenly felt dizzy and fell backward. She hurriedly caught Hun's bike. Manhwa asked worriedly if you were okay. You steadied yourself and replied, yes, I'm fine. Maybe I overestimated my strength a little. She then asked me to take you back to the dormitory. Or are you afraid of heights? Zehun confidently replied, I am not. Immediately, Yu-Ha lifted him up in a princess-style hold, leaving him no time to react. Let's go. She plants one foot and then shoots forward like a lightning bolt through the air. While still holding Bong-an in her arms, Yu-Ha was spinning and wondering if the mold she just ate could extract so much power. As she was suddenly lifted and shot through the air at a terrifying speed, Sehun could only helplessly surrender and think that in many ways, the current situation had changed greatly from before he returned to the past. Is Erica still patiently waiting in the schoolyard for him? Has Lee Ki-hun not arrived here yet? I need to give him this invitation. An anonymous person on the Babel Institute's Metallurgy Department forum posted a picture of Erica raising the issue. Why is that girl here? Isn't she the top student admitted to the combat department? A flood of question marks appeared, and someone finally spoke up, saying she had been standing still in front of the main building of the Metallurgy Department for 3 hours straight, trembling. So, a bunch of people appeared to respond to that comment. Is she waiting for the top student of the combat department? The last time I saw her waiting for him at the dormitory, was it really just that simple? If so, she could have just called him to come down. This idiot, I was just guessing. Am I not allowed to do that? This is really the end. Zehun has seen all of this and helplessly wonders, what is really going on here? Hoon auto-encouraged himself, saying, whatever, if there's something really important, they'll definitely come to find me again. Just then, the classroom door was also opened. Nice to meet you all. From today on, I will be in charge of teaching the tool comprehension class. My name is Ricardo's Mice. He slapped the door to get everyone's attention and gave the order. First, everyone moved to the training center. The last one to arrive will have to run 20 laps around the stadium. Start. As soon as Ricardo's finished speaking, the students quickly got up and ran away. Why are they making us run all of a sudden? Even Zehun looks tense among the crowd. Isn't this supposed to be a theory class? They kept rambling on. I didn't really understand either. Just keep running. In the end, we all finally reached the place. Ricardo was fined and he had to run 20 laps. He casually responded while running. Yes, I'm running now. The people around couldn't stop talking about it. This kid's stamina is so terrible it can't get any worse. I wonder if he really managed to pass the intermediate training. After a moment, Ricardo stepped forward and called out, everyone, pay attention, he explained seriously. Initially, the tool comprehension class was designed to teach the theory of equipment construction. But due to recent fire sword hunts, we need to change our training methods. There are ongoing attacks targeting blacksmiths capable of forging hero-level fire swords. Those individuals are called fire sword hunters. Running while listening, I secretly thought that even before I rewound time, it was still an unsolved case. He kept going, no matter how solid the defense system the students prepared, in the end the only thing that could protect him was this body. All right, Ricardos raised his voice to give instructions. Therefore, alongside studying the tools in this class, you will also be taught skills to protect yourselves. The students responded in unison, yes, sir. Ricardos nodded with satisfaction. Very well. Today our topic will be about swords. Sehun kept thinking to himself that he needed to be more careful this time. His steps kept lifting off the ground. To do that, the top priority is to improve my physical strength. Sehun's hand gently clenched, quietly assessing that although he made it himself, its effectiveness was indeed very impressive. The information display system shows that this bracelet is made from inkstone, capable of absorbing the wearer's mana to increase its weight accordingly. It stores and draws the owner's mana, allowing the activation of the explosive circle skill. The explosion circle skill allows control of gravity within a 1-meter radius around the user. Looking at the system display stats, he set a goal for himself. All my basic stats have increased by about 5 points on average. Before the end of first year, I must make this body stronger at all costs. After a while, Ricardos finally called Sehun over and said, "Stop running. Come here quickly." He then quietly looked down at his hand, the explosive ring. He secretly evaluated Sehun. Your condition seems better than I thought. Then Ricardos raised his sword and suggested testing if you have the talent for swordsmanship. Try swinging this sword and see how it goes. Sehun took it and observed for a while. Maybe it will be a bit difficult to move flexibly because of the influence of the ink spider bracelet. He hesitated for a moment, thinking that it wasn't exactly a well-practiced technique, but should I try to use that move? Finally, Zehun decided to swing his sword down, and the onlookers outside burst into mocking laughter. Too slow. He's probably exhausted after finishing the run. Still, his stance and technique don't look too bad. The Ricardo family, however, have a completely different opinion. No, it's actually very impressive. Your sword path seems to have already defined the direction it needs to go. He turned around to comment, but the pace was still too hurried. It would be better to slow down this aspect before continuing. Sehun's gaze suddenly sharpens, causing Ricaros to tremble all over, as if the space around him turns blindingly white in his sight. Ricaros freezes in shock. He looked confused at the sword pressed against his neck. Ricaros wondered to himself, could it be that I was just scared of a technique student and that caused such a terrifying hallucination? Then he hesitantly asked, who taught you that swordsmanship? Sehun smiled softly, but inside he was completely confused. Why does that move work? He once said it was just a technique he casually created in 10 minutes. Sehun recalled old memories, when Kwangshu had scratched his ear and said, I told you I'd pay you back next time. People sometimes face hardships in life, so why are you so frantic? Does he keep begging to use techniques instead of money? I will teach you that technique, so please stop and help him out. Returning to reality, Hun nervously scratched his head and lied. I just often watch videos of other heroes' battles. Ricaos was skeptical but still smiled and asked, do you really want to be trained properly in swordsmanship? He suggested I prepare a letter of recommendation for the body control class at AGA-QUF. That afternoon at the AGA-QUF center, Sehun stood bewildered among the crowd. Wang Shu is stomping angrily. How many times do I have to tell you I have nothing left to teach you? But Jack still didn't listen. Please, don't treat me like that. He is a retired S-rank hero and a regular customer, Ma Wang Shu, known as the Swordbreaker. Sehun was a bit incredulous. That guy who spends all day drunk and immersed in gambling is actually a professor? When he saw his appearance, Kwangsu asked, who are you? Sehun handed over the letter to introduce himself. I am Lai Sehun, a first-year student in the metallurgy department. I came here on the recommendation of Professor Ricaros. He was a bit surprised and asked back, Ricaros is the one who recommended you? Jack also struggled to get up and explained, that kid is the top student of the BOSPA department this year. He honestly assessed, no matter how you look at him, he seems incredibly ordinary. So Kwangshu questioned the little guy. Hey, do you really crave learning from me that much? He excitedly confirmed, yes, that's right. Hearing that, he pointed at the car and proposed. So if you beat that kid, I'll agree to take you in. He arranged the match for both of them, just one round. Whoever lands a valid hit on the opponent first wins. Wang Shu waved his hand to signal. Then the match begins. As soon as he finished speaking, Jack quickly charged forward. Sehun still stood still, gripping his sword tightly, and Kwangju wondered if relaxing was the way to maximize agility by eliminating all muscle strength. If so, the most basic alternative would be to grapple, rather than strike directly. Meanwhile, Jack swung his hand to attack. Wang Shu sighed in frustration and said, That's exactly why I hate show-offs who only care about outsmarting others and never fight properly. He complained, not feeling any fun at all, really ruining the mood. Then, Jack rushed over and hugged Sehun's stomach. He gritted his teeth in surprise. What kind of monstrous strength is this? Then Zehun thought to himself, but he activated his skill, the explosion ring, and its power burst out in a blinding flash. Zehun had successfully turned the tide, and he let out a pained cry. It seems I was a bit faster, right? The space quickly fell silent, and after a moment, Jay spoke up, saying, The attack just now was so quick that before he finished speaking, Kwangsu had already ordered everyone to disperse. I remember I promised to teach you if you won. Hunkar immediately sat up and suggested, Because he lost to me, isn't it right that the teacher should teach me? You play tricks and provoke. I never expected AGA-QUF's top student to be defeated by a BIPA student. Just hearing that is already pathetic. Are you so stunned, so utterly miserable? Seeing that, Kwangsu also suggested, Well, maybe I should straighten out this fool a bit so he can take care of himself. He excitedly turned and said, Then tell him I'll arrange a time and send it to you. And remember to be there on time. This made Jack extremely happy. He bowed deeply and expressed, I sincerely thank you, sir. Kwangsu sighed and waved his hand, saying, If you're done, you can leave now. Then turned to look at Zehun and said, I still have some private matters to discuss with this kid. After only the two of them are left in the room, Kwangsu suggests, Show me again the sword technique you used to deal with Ricarosi. He quickly agrees. I understand. Sehun looked at him nervously, then rushed forward with a sharp sword in hand. However, in a moment, Kwangsu knocked Zehun's sword away. He stood there in shock, listening to the comment, as this was a move intended to defeat the opponent at first. Kwang Su coldly affirmed, "The idea is quite good, but the execution is still very rough." "Do you think it's normal for a sword technique to reveal its weakness by the second use?" He angrily scolded that anyone who dares to teach others this and praise it as good, he would definitely break their limbs, but Kwang Su didn't know that it was actually he who had taught it. Wang Shu sighed and suggested, "Just wait and see. I will add a complete body based on your loose skeletal technique." Jia Hun calmly asked, "So that means I am officially enrolled in the class, right?" Kwang Su confidently confirmed, "Of course, that's correct." Hearing that, he also bid farewell with peace of mind. "Then today I'll be leaving early." After Zehun left, Kwang Su glanced at him with admiration. That kid is really stiff. After stepping outside, Zehun sighed irritably, acting as if he was so noble despite just doing after-sales service. Just then, Jay also approached to greet him, saying, "Hey, you." He replied, surprised, "You're still here?" Then took out a letter and said, "I have something I want to give you." "What is this?" "It's an invitation to join Nobusi. Basically, it's a gathering of students from noble families." Inside, Shun also realized that perhaps Erica had intended to give this to him all along. Jack excitedly said, "There are many arrogant people there, but I think this will be a good opportunity for you." But Sehun hesitated a bit and wasn't sure if he should accept something like this casually. He smiled warmly and expressed his gratitude. "Thanks to you, I was able to get into that class, so at least I should show my appreciation like this." Seeing that, Hun also smiled and said thank you. After a while on the way, he silently evaluated the elective courses he had registered for so far, which were barrier construction and body control. "I also want to try an elective from the BIPA department. Right now I'm weighing the curse technique of Kim and Enhancement. Because I was distracted, I accidentally bumped into someone." Zehun hesitated and apologized to the girl. His eyes suddenly froze as he realized a girl had grabbed his wrist and was inspecting it. "Did you create this yourself?" Sehun confidently confirms. "If I really made it, then what? Should she suggest or let me handle the enhancement for you?" The system quickly displays a notification that a link with the target named Leah Claudel has been successfully established. Leah Claudel is capable of upgrading equipment by up to 2 levels through enhancement. A genius among geniuses, the creator of legendary equipment, known as the one who revolutionized the enhancement industry. Leah shouted in shock, "Is inkstone dust really at a rare level?" She kept researching, saying, "If I just add a few formulas here, no, it's too amazing to stop at this level." Then Leah tiredly held her head and said, "I can't. How am I going to solve this difficult problem?" Seeing that scene, Hun silently assessed her. I never expected her to be this eccentric. Then he casually asked, "Do you think this equipment isn't good?" "The problem is that I want to do too many things with it. It's made from inkstone, but why is the compatibility so astonishingly high? There are so many formulas I could apply that I just can't decide." Hearing that, Zehun placed something on the table and spoke. "If that's the case, then it should be fine." Seeing her confused, he reminded her, "There's more to this," Lee Se-hun carefully advised her. "And since it also exhibits resonance, she should pay attention to that." Leah excitedly asked, "So who exactly are you?" "I am Lai Se-hun, a first-year student in the metallurgy department and this year's top student in the BIPA faculty." "First year? That's really impressive." "I am a third-year student in the enhancement department, and just then someone came over to interrupt our conversation. I have something to say. Come with me for a moment." Does Se-hun quickly realize that this is Erica's errand boy? Leah, feeling annoyed, stood up and scolded him. "Can't you see we're having a conversation here?" Only then did he lower his voice to speak. "I want to resolve this peacefully, so please give me a few minutes." Hun Xie replied coldly, "Just say it here." So he sighed and suggested, "Apologize for your rude attitude towards Miss Erica. You dared to tear up the invitation card she gave you in front of everyone." Zehun looked confused, but then the young lady herself asked me to tear it up. His eyes immediately turned angry as he scolded, "Of course you have your own reasons. I wish you hadn't accepted the invitation from the Myers family." Zehun irritably questioned, "Did Erica send you here?" He quickly denied it. "No, this was entirely my personal decision." Right at this moment, Leah also chuckled mockingly. "Yeah, I can believe that." She straightforwardly exposed him. "Is there anyone who still doesn't know that you are the loyal subordinate of the young master? This makes him furious. How dare a useless person like you? Maybe right now you're deluding yourself into thinking you're someone special. You criticized Se-hun, but Babeo has no shortage of geniuses far beyond your level." However, he didn't bother to respond. "Does your comment imply you're talking about yourself?" Se-hun's words hit him like a thunderbolt. The angry man shouted loudly, "Shut up right now." Sehun witnessed his power erupt, but still calmly reached out his hand. With just one hand, he could fend off the horde of illusionary beasts rushing at him. A sudden surge of magic vanished, and he then spoke with a sense of wonder. "Just as I suspected, that thing wasn't created solely from magic. You used the sword group as a medium to attack even when they were just illusions?" This made him so scared, he stuttered. "How is that possible?" Sehun calmly spun his weapon in his hand and replied. "Who would have thought?" he said with an excited laugh. "Sounds pretty delicious." At the same time, the system also announced that the Iron Link mark was officially activated, and he helplessly exclaimed, "My million is gone for good." Hun smirked and expressed his amusement. "With such an exquisite flavor, no wonder you went crazy over it." The system again displays the Ruha Link information. Supreme, high-quality, greedy iron that can generate heat energy by devouring other types of iron. It corrodes metal on contact and absorbs their cores into itself, hunting and consuming iron to produce mineral blood. Remaining durability is 78%. Explosion circle. In a moment, the Hun vehicle sped up, and he punched the guy straight in the stomach, causing the man to collapse to his knees. Sehun turned to call Leah, so he glanced at her and asked if there was any lecture in the Enhancement department that she thought was worth recommending to him. Leah's face suddenly flushed, then she confidently mentioned ancient enhancement techniques, where there is also an extremely talented senior named Leah Claudel. After leaving, the man painfully clutching his stomach, "What a damn shame." He kept muttering, unable to believe that a freshman could have such an incredible reflex speed. Just then, Erica also appeared from the front and said, "Sorry, I want to borrow that sword for a quick inspection." He jumped in surprise and shouted, "Miss Erica, how long have you been here to—" The subordinate also respectfully handed it back to her. "Here it is, miss. You don't need to report this to my brother. As for the owner, I will speak with them privately later." He nervously scratched his head in response. "Yes, I understand," Erica silently assessed. "Indeed, a device used as a conduit. It has a magical anti-theft seal engraved on it." She feels a bit uneasy inside. Could he have created a counterattack skill based on his magic and Professor Robert himself? Erica's mind started to feel confused. "Lee Sehun, your talent in forging techniques might even surpass Class S. I must upgrade your magic compatibility rating to A." The system suddenly appeared. A connection with Erica's in-out was established. This leaves Hun confused. What's really going on? He begins to wonder if she was secretly watching him fight that subordinate. Lee Sehun, holding the blades in his hands in helplessness, at least he has received a worthy reward. "You still need nearly 1,000 swords. Left as is, it's a bit rough, but if combined with the Black Spirit thread, it should work well." He just yawned repeatedly and complained, "For now, let's put that aside. I used to look forward to Professor Kim In-cheon's classes, but I never expected to spend the whole day listening to boring theories I already memorized." Immediately after, Einan also spoke seriously. "That explanation is enough. Now let's get to the main point." He picks up the item on the desk and explains that even when using the same type of metal, its shape will change completely depending on how you manipulate the arrangement of your magic power. And suddenly, a stone appears along with In-cheon's words. The ability to apply this metal deformation technique is what determines the versatility of a weapon. He placed different stones on the table, and then Einan turned them back into the original piece of iron, he confirmed. "Therefore, if you choose to become a blacksmith, you must master the potential of the metal you are working with perfectly." In-cheon raised the issue, and today's lesson will focus on practicing deformation techniques on these iron bars. He asked someone to distribute the stones and then gave the instruction to first use the flow of magic to create a scratch about 3 centimeters deep at the center of the iron bar. This tool has been fine-tuned to react very sensitively to deformation, so you need to handle it very carefully. Hun silently concluded that it seems he doesn't completely reject magic forging methods after all. In-cheon calmly announced that the time limit for you is 10 minutes, and everyone can start right now. The students are extremely confused with the ingots in their hands. Why is this happening to them? Everyone keeps complaining that it no longer returns to its original shape. Just then, 2 more people stepped forward. Hun lightly said, "I have finished." Han glanced at the report and said, "I've finished it." Einan nodded approvingly. "Well done, you can move on to the next training phase." Then he started to raise another issue. "We will try a different layout diagram. Please give it a try." Han glanced at the car full of confidence. His speed and level of perfection were on par with him. "This time I will definitely win." Einan keeps explaining non-stop. Next, he will follow this pattern. He hurriedly carries it out with overwhelming confidence. "My moment has come." Han happily thinks he will complete it perfectly so that everyone will be amazed. But after he finished, Ainun asked, "Han, try to restore that iron bar to its original state." Han immediately looked confused and asked back, "Sir, what do you mean, sir?" Only when he tries to do it does he become confused. Oh no, why did it turn out like this? Han helplessly realizes that the arrangement of the mana flows has been completely destroyed. Seeing that, Ainon immediately said, "The ingot couldn't withstand the deformation you just performed." In other words, it proves that your processing method was flawed from the very beginning. He hesitated and asked, "But I clearly followed the professor's instructions exactly as told." He lowered his head and explained, "What I emphasized earlier is that you must fully understand the inherent potential of the metal." Inon kept criticizing that if the magic structure cannot be restored after being affected, it is no longer deformation, but a severe deterioration of the equipment. It would become a major factor affecting quality and performance. So you need to study this part carefully again in the future. After hearing that, Han also lowered his head in response. "I will remember your teachings carefully." Then he glanced at the Hun vehicle, wondering if that guy really understood the key point. In the end, he concluded that maybe he just got lucky while distracted. But then Hun's car succeeded. It really does have this effect. He managed to restore the iron bar to its original state, causing all the students to be bewildered. What, didn't the teacher just say that method wasn't feasible? It can't be like that. Even Inhyun is confused. Student Lee Zehun, could you please perform the deformation technique again for me to see? Zehun silently thought, I accidentally made the teacher misunderstand. I'm embarrassed to say that this is only possible because it's a specially adjusted type of iron made specifically for students. A normal standard iron would never be able to do this. Seeing everything happening, Ainon realized a new insight. It was possible thanks to the sensitive properties of the specially refined iron block. He pondered deeply, surprised that even he had overlooked such an important detail. The greatest conqueror of heights and the most legendary blacksmith, Saint Fireleans. He created it during his years as an S-rank hero and has maintained it for decades since then. No one has been able to deny it. The deformation formula, considered the core of all blacksmiths and the truth of forging steel, made Ainon hesitate. Certain he couldn't find another way. Is that right? Should I believe that it's possible for this guy? Sehun turns away silently, thinking that if he recognizes it again this time, it will be the second consecutive time. Outside, it's getting darker, and Inon speaks up. The lesson ends here. You may take a break. Student Lee Zehun, can you stay a little longer so I can meet with you? Sir, is there something wrong? Inon immediately took out a gift to break the ice. Because you have helped me a lot with the transfer to Bao system, it also displays information about the blood fire flame, rare grade, high quality, a type of ore containing the essence of the crimson fire. It possesses a special ability used to melt various mixed ores into liquid form. Sehun hesitated a bit, then spoke up to explain, if you can absorb the essence from this fire gem, you will permanently enhance your crimson flame. I prepared it carefully because I heard you have the ability to control blood fire. Hearing that, he also happily nodded and said, I thank you, teacher. This gift will definitely be a great help to me. Ainon suddenly asked, I have one more thing to ask. Are you planning to enroll in the supplementary course I am teaching? He calmly replied, Are you referring to the basic equipment research course? That surprised Inon a little. Do you also know about that course? Yes, I do. He secretly judged that it was one of the classes Babeo invested the most money in. Zehun felt a bit confused. Now what should I do? Before going back in time, I've never heard the name Kim Ainon before, so it's likely that the ending for this professor wasn't very good. However, at the moment, he is a professor receiving a lot of attention. Then Sehun cheerfully said, I have decided to join that course. Inon asked with concern, Are you okay? I see you've registered for quite a few elective courses, but he also calmly explained that if you include this one, it's only the 4th course so far. Inon couldn't say anything and shook hands with Sehun, expressing his anticipation. I look forward to working with you in the near future. He politely replied, I feel the same way. At the same time, the system displayed a notification that it was extracting the connection from the Kim Incheon object. The connection with creator Lee Zehun is currently at level 1. The Kim Incheon iron link carries high-grade fire, but with low average quality. A type of metal that contains fire within it. It has properties similar to wood and can hold a flame inside. Hun sat quietly lost in thought. If someone has the ability to extract metal from another person's body, it also means they can forge and temper their own body. When multiple types of magical attributes coexist within a single body, they can cause conflicts with each other. Because this is extremely dangerous for a blacksmith who demands absolute precision, using only the most suitable attribute for their talent has become an unspoken rule. However, I am a completely different case myself. My internal mana reserves used to suppress the rising temperature are gradually being depleted. Once the body is drained of mana, it will start drawing the essence of the deep red flame inside. My task as a blacksmith is to establish a dedicated mana circuit for the deep red flame within my own body. After a moment, Hun took a deep breath of relief, realizing that only then could he forge himself from within. Notification system. Your attribute magic power has increased from Bloodfire F rank to Bloodfire E+ rank. A series of notifications sound. You have learned the S rank skill called Spirit Body Forging Magic. The body is the most primitive material a blacksmith can refine. When the mana circuits inside are forged, physical abilities will improve and strength will be enhanced. All basic stats have increased significantly thanks to the effect of the skill. The forged car with D15 durability, D100 mana, D19 speed, E87 grits its teeth in aesthetic magic forging of spirit bodies, so you remember how hard it was in your past life when Leah questioned you. You already had the materials in hand but still wanted to give up without even thinking about how to handle them. She laughed and asked if you were an idiot. Are you planning to accept that or not return to reality and smile with determination? Yes, I must make full use of everything I can use, and no matter if the opponent is an ally or an enemy this time, I will definitely not regret anything about myself today. In a large stone building, a voice said. We will complete the items you have crafted during the recent lessons. Because these finished products are expected to be supplied both inside and outside the academy, the red-haired young man standing with his hands on his hips in front of everyone can confidently say that today's results will determine the entire situation of this first semester. So, everyone give it your all so you won't have any regrets later. You understood? Everyone shouted in unison. Understood. Sehun observes the sword in his hand, thinking. Everything is really falling into chaos. My current body can't keep up with my reflexes, so many details are out of sync. On one hand, he holds a hammer and thinks that this is no longer the right time to relax, as flames flare up and waves of fire cut straight through this place. A boiling pot of water steaming. Hun Cheon quietly observes with a long stick in hand. This result is probably acceptable for now, but it seems you're starting to worry and overthink. With the remaining time, finishing everything else will be extremely difficult. If I only do things at an average level, I might receive additional funding support. He places it on the whetstone, but ultimately, dedicating effort to create at least one truly quality item is the right thing to do. His hand skillfully hones the sword, standing there with intense focus, the sound roaring in his mind like the end of the world approaching. His gaze is fixed downward, and every time he hears this distinctive sound, he creates perfect items. All focus is directed there, thinking this is not just a momentary sharpness, but a sword engraved deep into its very essence. The flashes of light beneath are called white light. The information becomes clearer. The ultimate white light longsword has been completed. A great blacksmith always reveals his will through the simplest things. A master craftsman knows how to maximize the potential of materials to forge a new blade, truly deserving of the highest praise. A notification appears informing you that you have acquired the skill called White Light Flow C. 2 gleaming swords appear with their details. The white light longsword is classified as rare and of high quality. This is a long sword with a pure white blade, expertly polished and combined with a magical energy arrangement that makes it both durable and incredibly sharp. A masterpiece crafted by a master blacksmith. The sand-slicing power will be released when infused with magic. Sehun, holding his newly crafted weapon, sighed in relief, thinking that considering he only used ordinary iron, this result is somewhat acceptable. He hopes that as he looks at this weapon, the skills from before he turned back time gradually recover. Even just a little, the 2 knights behind, and holding their swords anxiously, start to tear up one after another. I really hate this feeling. Maybe I should consider dropping out of school. The next Saturday morning, while the red-haired guy was sitting at the coffee shop, intently looking at his phone, a voice suddenly spoke up. I really hope you don't want to see my enhancement techniques. Hun's car is looking around as we go. Well, I'm actually quite curious about her basic skills, too. It seems pretty crowded here. Leah is walking beside me, also observing. Don't worry too much, my workplace is in a much quieter area. Are you sure this place isn't a bit too far away? Did you think you could easily see my skills up close? She pulled him into the Aga QUF hardware store. This is the place. She stepped inside and shouted loudly, Grandma! My voice echoes. I'm here now. Helena sat inside, wrinkling her face as she twirled her pinky finger. I'm not deaf, so why are you shouting like that? The car behind looks angry when she asks. Who is the kid with you? Her boyfriend? Leah stood in front of him and replied. That's not true at all. He gradually started to smile as she spoke. He is the top student of the BIPA department who just enrolled this year. Bob Bello, maybe it's time for you to fade away since you took in such a fragile-looking kid. Then Helena finally stood up from the table, leaning on her hands. My name is Helena, and Zae-hun also spoke at this moment. I am Lee Ae-hoon, a first-year student in the metallurgy department. She seems to be getting angry. Stop chatting nonsense and get to work quickly. This week, the workload has piled up a lot because of the new students. Leah glances away and sighs. Yes, I understand. She just pointed to the room behind. The way to the forge is this way. She looks at the items in the blacksmith's room, lost in thought. That old woman's skills seem deeper than I thought. I follow behind, observing carefully and pondering each thought. I just can't understand why someone like her would run a hardware shop in this place. She's walking ahead, holding each item, wondering. The work has indeed accumulated a lot. A tray of colorful paints is placed on the table. This is the Enhancement palette, and these are powders ground from magic stones. He crossed his arms and looked on, thinking he knew the usual standard was 8 colors, but she used them in such a diverse way. Then he finally spoke. Is your job to restore damaged enhancement formulas using this? Helena raised a brush, pointing precisely at it. With one hand holding the trowel and the other dipping the brush into the color palette, I was able to earn money and freely perform enhancements without worrying about material costs. The colored lines drawn by her shining with vibrant hues from the ordinary claw at her hand have become more impressive. Hun stood there silently watching, thinking he came because he sensed she was facing a stall in her work. I remember someone once told me that a BA has-been always carries failure into every exam and even can't keep the top spot in their own department. Helena's focused image with her brush and pan brought those thoughts to mind. Indeed, seeing it with my own eyes, I think I've found the cause and a solution for her stagnation. With those thoughts, he turned and walked away. Perhaps immersing himself in work was also a kind of talent. He stands with his hands in his pockets in front of a wooden table, a small item on the table hitting the face of the Hun car. This will resonate with the magic arrangement to create a special effect. He lowered his head to look more closely. After all, it's been a long time since the silver glow was engraved again. I'm also feeling itchy and restless. Helena watched from behind. Just try using it. She frowned as she stood behind. Of course, if you have the ability to do it, just pick any item from that pile over there. He suddenly glanced back, feeling like she was deliberately trying to order him around. He turned his head to look, thinking that if he was allowed to use that high-quality special grinding stone, he definitely had to try it once. Then his eyes fixed on it, and his hand grasped its handle. She stands behind with her arms crossed, watching, and asks, Are you really going to do that with that item? Huo Hao excitedly touches the blade of the knife. Yes, judging by how the blade is evenly worn and the axis isn't twisted, it's clear this is a sword used by someone truly skilled. He stands in front of the table holding the sharpening stone, thinking that for this type of stone, it contains uniformly compressed magical particles. If you use this, it will be enough to handle even when sharpening the blade to its ultimate sharpness limit. His hand moves gently and skillfully, placing the knife on the whetstone. Helena stood behind, silently questioning herself. Is that kid really a new student who just enrolled this year? Leah excitedly shouted, startling her. It's all done. She only just realized now. Oh, ma'am, when did you arrive here? She didn't turn around, and I didn't know either. That girl then moved to stand beside me and looked at her. She deliberately looked for mistakes in her junior, but in the end, she was taught a lesson by him. Am I right? Helena pushed her away angrily, shouting, Shut up for me. She looked at the hesitant Hun car and asked, Have you finished everything? He smiled and replied, This is the best result I can achieve for now. Next time I will definitely do even better. All right, both of you should go home quickly now. Leah holds his arm and steps outside, glancing in. She's just being unreasonable and grumpy for no reason. Let's go. Inside, she's standing with her hands on her hips where you just worked. Excuse me, are you practicing your craft? Helena looked out and pouted. Just be quiet for a moment. He hurriedly ruffled his hair awkwardly. The backlog of orders is currently very large. And what about the kitchen knife? His words came out somewhat less composed. When will you finally give up that job at the restaurant? Someone who should be a professor in the combat department. She replied irritably, Stop complaining about other people's personal preferences. He walks in and picks up the knife on the table. Ah, here it is. Suddenly, he sensed something unusual and frowned as he turned to look. Hey sis, did you just drink alcohol while sharpening this blade again? She stood there with her arms crossed and her head bowed. I didn't do that, he continued. So could this be the work of the new assistant trainees they've become close with recently? Their skills must have improved tremendously to do this. Helena bowed her head and closed her eyes. She is a new student. He turned around in disbelief. What did you say? Her eyes just opened and she replied, "The new freshman this year is the one who sharpened it." Remembering the image of the burned car in the conversation, "Who exactly is that guy?" Hun asked as he went outside. The old lady at the metal shop was actually a former professor of the metallurgy department. Leah, walking beside him, replied, "Yes. I heard she retired 5 years ago and came back to Aga to open this shop." He glanced at her and asked, "Do you think there's something more to it?" She looked over and replied, "I'm not sure either. Maybe it's nothing special." The image of the academy appears as she described, and over the past 5 years, quite a few professors have left the metallurgy department. He looked over and replied, "Is that so?" Hun kept thinking to himself, if this place is going to become the weakest department in Babeo in the future, then this is definitely a story he can't ignore. Leah, walking beside him, placed her hand on her chest, and more importantly, he wondered how my enhancement technique was performed. I was startled and looked down at her. The basics definitely have nothing to hide. It's pretty good. Her face became full of pride. "Oh my, what's so great about that anyway?" Suddenly, he lost his enthusiasm and spoke up, but her way of thinking is still too narrow. The sky seems to grow darker as Leah steps forward to face him. "What did you just say?" The car points directly at her. She had already come up with better options, but didn't dare to implement them. She stammered in response, "How could you possibly realize that?" Leah knew fell into depression, bowing her head to listen to the comments. If you don't know, you can learn, but if you already know and still can't do it, then that's the real problem. A craftsman's imagination is their weapon and talent, yet you're holding it back. Everything shattered inside her, as if it were me. "Do you think I do these things just because I don't understand them?" Hun winked, sighed, and looked for something in his shirt before pulling out a sword that surprised her. "I have a different plan, so I can't perform for long. Focus carefully on observing." Then he took out a stone from underwater as an example. If someone asked her to place a stone beneath the water surface, creating the stone and dropping it is the work of a blacksmith. The image gradually fades away, and the act of depicting the image of the sinking stone on the water is the art of enhancement. That is why enhancement always carries the essence of dreams. A sword appears with red lights swirling around the blood fire. The sword suddenly flies in front of her, surrounded by the power of white light swordsmanship. The image of its immense power appears. Don't just influence the outer layer, but embed that enhancement deep into the core of the weapon. He observes the knife in his hand and the power swirling around it. If one layer isn't strong enough, then divide them into multiple levels. The driver's hand forcefully pushed it down, and as she followed this method, he threw it back with a strong swing, and then stood straight on the ground. It plunged straight into the ground. Everything seemed to pause for that surge of power. He looked down seriously, pondering. Although he couldn't confirm this was a proper enhancement technique, if it was Leah, watching her place her hand in front of her chin only made him think more. Geniuses like her often find their way even when hesitating. Suddenly, Leah nervously points behind her and says, "Please let me borrow that item for a moment. I promise I will return it perfectly after fixing it." "Please, please, to it. You're sweating so much just to listen." "Just to hand over that item." "I don't mind, but if you're taking it, take this too." She jumped up happily as if she had received love. "Thank you so much. I love you so much." She disappeared, leaving him alone and lost there. Lee Jae-hoon sighed in relief upon receiving the notification that the link with Leah Claudel was being established. The level of connection with the creator Lee Jae-hoon has reached level 1. He also spoke, "That girl is still so childish." Standing in the crowded area, Jae-hoon looked around and thought, "Finally, today, I have a chance to meet one of those 3 demon dogs. Every battle between the Berserk dog and the Sun Destruction demon during our youth. I remember Erica walking behind made me think. But what mattered more was when I finally asked, 'What are you doing?' She whispered ominously, 'Just following you, of course.' He replied indifferently, 'If I told you to go somewhere else now, would you go?' She stepped forward and stood beside him. 'I would go because I can easily observe you from a distance.' Hun glanced back and sighed in relief. I knew she would do that. 'Come on, let's go inside.' An item like frozen snow with an introduction line, linked by a social contract of Erica in-out. Categorization, rare, quality, low is average. An artificial ore infused with refined magic power that helps stabilize the chaos of internal magic. While mixing with other minerals, a new magic stone also appears with a notification of Leah Claudel's complex explosive link, classified as rare, top quality, a colorful, multi-hued gemstone. It serves as an excellent catalyst that maximizes the potential of composite materials. On the large stadium grounds, a cute projection appears on the screen, warmly welcoming the new students of the Babeo Academy to the famous sightseeing spot of the martial arts arena. I sincerely greet everyone in this ranked match. She winks at the camera. I am the youngest professor in the martial arts department and will serve as the commentator today. My name is John Fang. Under the spotlight, her voice still echoes. So without further delay, let's introduce today's fighters. The tall figure of a woman appears under the lights. First, look over here. The top student of the 4th year in the AGA QUF region, and also the future heir of the Myers family, known for training S-rank heroes. He pushed back his shiny blonde hair with his hand, a perfect superhuman who has continuously broken records and maintained the #1 spot at the martial arts arena for the past 3 years. She is now an A-class hero, active in the field, and our champion. Her beautiful face is revealed, and she is also the Sword Saint, the last person to conquer the highest peak of the Hero Tower area Mir. Loud sounds echo as Hun and Erica look down with crossed arms. "Sister, take me with you," Arya shining brightly, along with the narration of John and the first challenger daring to face the champion today, as light shines upon a man with a long sword on his back, inheritor of Korea's intangible cultural heritage, descendant of the fire wheel technique, 3rd-year top student in the martial arts department, and a strong candidate for the top spot at the martial arts arena. Sehu looks down, and in his final thoughts, we've finally met. This person stands there showing their power, a wild beast. John also loudly called out this person's name, and with a fierce charge, the flames from his sword stopped just before touching the ground. Meanwhile, Arya skillfully controlled her sword, launching a strike that made him jump back. He gritted his teeth and forced himself to endure, his hand gripping the wooden staff beside him, Arya's eyes shining with a terrifying intensity, and then flames spiraled into a roaring circle around her, seemingly aiming to attack Zeha directly. This makes Zehun realize he still has to think. Even considering his young age, he hasn't reached the necessary standard. Could it be that he hasn't received the support worthy of the heir of the burning flame of Firewheel? Zeha's hand hesitated as he put it behind his head, feeling quite unsettled by many things, but the biggest obstacle was the equipment he was using, yet he threw it aside and prepared to charge forward. A sharp, long sword suddenly pierced past and aimed at his neck. Mr. Ha's car seems confused by the sword at his throat, then he lowers himself. I have lost. Arya holds the microphone in front of her happily. She's been through a lot. The official match is over. The final winner is Arya Myers. The two of them stand on the same podium, while the announcer on the other side continues his work. Next, we will conduct interviews with both fighters. That was the plan, but student Yom Song-ha had to leave early due to an unexpected reason. She covered her mouth and laughed. Facing the 9th rank immediately afterward was truly too much for both of us. Yom-ha quietly leaves as all the lights focus on the area. Maybe I should fill this empty time with a direct Q&A session with myself. The audience up there is very enthusiastic. They agree completely. The car honks and glances over there thoughtfully. That guy looks really upset. But then you stood up, making Erica turn around. "Are you planning to leave early without watching the whole match?" he said, hands in his pockets. "Yeah, I'm not really into that fighting style," he said as he walked away. Look at her. Standing there must be making her anxious, right? Erica turned with a worried thought, feeling relieved that he didn't come there to see his brother. But why does he seem so angry? Suddenly, a voice spoke up beside her. "Are you an interesting new student?" Has Arya ever stood there looking back? The amber eyes look back with hope. Perhaps I've finally found someone like that. Zeha is sitting in meditation at the park near the martial arts gym, while Zehun quietly approaches, thinking that Zanha is still alive and quite healthy. Zeha is recalling the moment he unleashed each powerful move. Even though his personality is a bit like a dog's, he remains a key member of the Death Squad and was the last to sacrifice his life to destroy the demon god of the apocalypse. He stands behind him, thinking that because he hasn't become too corrupted yet, this time he might successfully acquire the linked stone more easily, while he is frowning and bowing his head. "You were just watching the practice match, right?" The car nodded with his hand in his pocket. "Yes, I did take a quick look," his head slightly tilted back, finding me at the bottom. "Shows your strength isn't weak." Mr. Ha turned around with a sinister look. "Is it you again? Why is the top student of the Basipa department here?" He stood there worried, wondering why he was so hostile. Then he finally spoke. "I came here hoping we could have a little discussion." Then he turned back and said, "Get out of my sight." The car slowly approached. "This will really benefit you, senior," but he has already knelt down to respond. "Maybe you still don't understand, so I'll only remind you once. I have always hated the weak, especially those who stand before CONA and are incapable of doing anything for themselves. And to those who think their petty tricks can compare to me, no matter what you want to say, just go back." A remark that made him freeze in place. A lowly blacksmith. Remember what Sion Ha used to do in the past. Go back to your workshop and forge your equipment. Know your limits and stay in your place. This guy doesn't make me think too much either. Compared to the time he was called the crazy dog, he looks quite decent now. Hun's car is performing a spell in his hand as he thinks. With that attitude, I know there's no way to resolve this with words. Mr. Ha also glanced back, seeming determined not to stop. He approached where you were casting a spell and spoke. I also have something to tell you that will leave him stunned. The history of the burning flame wound will be ended by his own hand. So Zanha rushes forward at full speed, clenches his fists, and unleashes his power. His punch was blocked by his power just as a notification appeared, and he was kicked away. The greedy blood link mark has officially been activated. He frowned in confusion, wondering if he had just countered a blow, enhanced by his own magic power. Flames swirl around Zhang as he concentrates on thinking about him. Indeed, he lives up to being the top student of the department. Maybe in the end he finally has enough standing to speak with me. His attitude became more determined, but the trajectory of the destructive fire magic still remains. This is truly the true power of the fire wheel Ashen Flame. Everything will end right here as they both fly straight toward each other. The fire car seems to have created a group to throw flames at the vehicle. The smoke covers him, and then he slowly emerges from the smoke. He looks a bit surprised from afar. What is it? How can the flames that only respond to his magic be held in his hand? Don't tell me he has split and taken the terrifying things that are approaching. Suddenly, a group of flames shot straight through his neck. He looked ahead, thinking, that bastard. Seha and his purple powers are in a fighting stance, making him unable to help but think. He seems about to go crazy and lose control. The image of a pink-haired man carrying a weapon on his shoulder in front of the disaster gate at Hao Huaman, which probably triggered the chaos, is about to throw a punch. It rushes forward with precision, the victim still thinking the effect of greed is about to fade and their endurance has reached its limit. When the fist is about to hit the Hun car's face, the duration of greed's effect has run out, and their body can no longer hold on. They fall as if gravity has disappeared from above, just as he catches Zanha's punch, catching him completely off guard. But no, it was Jack trying his best to block the punch, which surprised him. Jack Myers. He immediately spoke up. Do you know the top student of the Bosapa department? He stammered, yes, kind of, we know each other. Then he also jerked his hand back. He walks away to a quieter place, leaving immediately. Retchingly, he shouts, yes, sir. Then he turned to me and said, let's get in the car and go quickly. He's glancing at him, looking terrified. Remember what I told you, don't say those strange things anymore. Hurry up and leave quickly. Songha is standing there alone with his thoughts. I just couldn't hold back my emotions and threw a punch. If I had done it a moment later, I would have tarnished the honor of the fire dragon burning flame and caused trouble for my master. His eyes looked down. Jack is walking ahead of him on the street. What were you thinking to dare pick a fight with that senior? If I hadn't stopped you in time, you might have really lost your life. Hun's car bows its head and lets out a sigh of relief. How about me? How could it be that easy? He's worried beside me. What did you say? A notification appeared in front of me. A connection to the target Zhangha has been successfully established. He spoke. Earlier I was just threatening him, but my thoughts also started to surface. The next step is to extract the link stone. Thinking of Zhangha's fierce battle scenes. However, the person I used to know is exactly the crazy dog Yom Sion. If he's still this weak now, the effectiveness of the linked stone might be affected. I need to figure out how to increase the bonding level with Yom Sion. Then he looked at Jack thinking, but this guy also seems to be quite capable. He also asked, are you hurt anywhere? He brightly pointed to the wound on his palm and said, it's okay, my hand is naturally very tough. Hun's car glanced over, thinking, is his hand really that tough? That's ridiculous. He turned to look, and more importantly, he extended his hand to show his attitude. What did you say about my sister at the front of the school? He looked a bit surprised. You mean Arya Myers, right? She replied. Yes, that's right, it's nothing much, I just think she's a little proud. He clutched his head in terror. What do you mean? No wonder she kept pestering me about everything related to you. Se-hun stood there, thinking of Arya. She must have started to take an interest in you. Hun's car, with a cold expression, recalls the image of the woman being talked about. My sister seems to have already started paying attention to you. The sister mentioned, Arya is smiling, and he helplessly sighs. How can she still hear in the noisy crowd like that? Her hearing really is exceptional, RC tried to advise. Next time, please just say you'll stop. My sister is actually a level hero. Hun put his hands in his pockets and mocked while talking. Honestly, if it were just simple concern, I would gladly accept it. When he looked at Jack frustrated and ruffling his hair, he had a thought. Yomo Seonha's biggest concern was probably defeating Arya. If I can attract the attention of her opponent, my influence will naturally increase. He put on a bored expression and sighed. Don't look down on that so much. You just don't understand who my sister really is. Before I could finish my sentence, suddenly a sharp voice cut in. A petty and scheming person, right? I flinched and instinctively looked around to check my surroundings. Maybe you shouldn't use such harsh words. Suddenly, his face grew serious. The car fell silent at the question. Why do you have such a grudge against my sister? The girl in armor with blonde hair, wielding the powerful holy sword Arya Myers, stands like a ruler face to face with the monsters. This was once a dull and lifeless sword. Under the dark moonlight, Arya spreads her wings high and raises that sword to the sky. One day, that sword saint suddenly disappeared without a trace, and the one who appeared afterward was someone who had turned the achievements of a demon god into their own weapon. The Annihilation demon god, lurking in the shadows, only smirked faintly, and just by looking at her face, you could tell trouble was coming. Then he just strolled away, casually waving goodbye. I'm leaving now. Ray stood dazed in his back, still not understanding what just happened. What just occurred? He suddenly paid attention to the sound of his phone ringing. His phone screen received a message from Arya Myers' sister. It seems you've just made a very interesting friend. Tell me everything later. He was startled and tense after reading it. Does that mean from now on I have to be the link between them? Suddenly his eyes froze and turned pale. Arya sent a message as if to imply something mysterious. Your petty and scheming older sister just asked me for a little favor, Z. Standing alone and exhausted while reading a message on the street. Damn it. The scene shifts to the next morning at a classroom in Babeo Academy. Hun's car is inside, and he places his hand on his shoulder because he feels a sharp pain. Did I go too far yesterday in confronting Yo Seon-ha? Han was sitting at the table above, barely whispering. The schedule for the event will be announced soon. Riss, holding his cane, drove the tiny car into the classroom and shouted loudly, Everyone stay in order. He entered the classroom, raised his staff, and announced, I am Ristova. I will be in charge of your specialized classes for the next 2 weeks, focusing on refining your abilities. The students in that room all looked pale when they saw him, sharing the same thought that the famous professor was a crazy lunatic. Riss calmly and seriously announced that before the lesson begins, you must seize this opportunity and submit your homework to me by next Thursday. First is David. David, hearing your name, you immediately jump in surprise and answer, Sir, I do. Riss Ti-hun sat comfortably on the scooter holding the paper. And the last person on the list is Lai from Hun's car. Hearing his name called, he immediately stood up. Han, sitting in front, glanced down. I wonder if everyone's curious to see how much money he will get. The person sitting next to him also had a thought. I feel like the amount he received must be at least 3 times my share. Riss suddenly announced in a clear voice. So the budget for my car is separate? It's not officially announced yet. When I saw that, I was instantly startled. What did you say? He deliberately let his hair hang down to cover his eyes because everyone kept criticizing that his hairstyle was outdated and ugly. Riss remained calm as he reached up to stroke his white beard because the quality of the product he submitted showed an extremely high level of contrast. It exceeded expectations, so the school decided to include it in the public auction for second-year students happening this Wednesday. He continued explaining the reason. So we will base the budget on the final bid amount. Please wait a little longer. Hun's car stood still as he frowned in thought. Could this be a trick by Vice Principal Michael? He's deliberately interfering to handle things separately again. My mind is still confused and thinking about this. But, thinking about it, if there was any hidden agenda in the order, Professor Kim Inan would have already stepped in to stop it beforehand. He then also responded to him. I understand everything now, Riss doesn't look scary and even gestures to the next lesson. The topic we will study today is excess magic power, and a talented student has volunteered to assist me in this intensive practice session. Please come in. That person is Seon-ha. He appears and enters the classroom to Riss's introduction, introducing him to the class. This is my temporary teaching assistant. Yom Son-ha, a third-year business major at Aga QUF, suddenly spoke loudly next to Hun's car. Why is that famous senior suddenly appearing here? Everyone seems just as excited in class as they do when they see beautiful girls. Mr. Ha's car stopped right next to the professor, and he continued with the lecture. That's enough for the introduction. Let's review the basic concepts before moving on to practice. The round-shaped specimens emitting mana are mentioned in weapon crafting. The form of excess mana is mainly divided into 2 types. The first is the basic energy recharge type. The second type is autonomous, capable of generating or absorbing mana from the surrounding air. Both have their own advantages and disadvantages, but the autonomous type is much more difficult to master. Riss explains the theory in a serious tone, because there is no fixed standard for creating a magic core. It will vary depending on the materials, techniques, and the source of magic of the creator himself. He then looked at Xiangha standing beside him and continued, "Therefore, all of you will start with the energy absorption type first. Assistant, please come forward." His hand begins to curl and tense, releasing a red magical energy. The red energy starts to appear in the classroom space. Fire element abilities are prone to sudden explosions, making it hard to have excess mana for use. He created 2 red mana streams that meet to form an arc. However, if you can control that nature, it will reveal an incredible ability to store words. Reese continues explaining based on Seonha's simulation. A perfect example is the technique my assistant is demonstrating right now, which is the Burning Flame Wheel's Last Flame. Han watched the performance in shock, wondering if it was possible to control fire magic to such an extent. The student sitting next to him was just as amazed. Even controlling a forge is already beyond my ability. Riss stands on the podium, holding up a device. Since we are lucky to have such a talented assistant, we must make the most of this opportunity. Please submit your assignments before Thursday next week. The requirements are clearly written on the whiteboard. The theme of the request is about excess magical power in a recharge form with a train wheel symbol. He also continued to give detailed reminders, and you can be creative with anything you like as long as you stick to this theme. Riss sat on her small vehicle, looking excited as she kept spinning her staff. Now, let's quickly head to the refining room. Oh right, don't forget to change your outfit. After he leaves, only Mr. Ha's car remains there. The other students suddenly stood up, seizing the opportunity. Han and a few others harbored a thought in their minds, a golden chance to speak with Senior Yomson Ha. He excitedly took the initiative to say hello. "Hello, Senior." He looked very polite and was about to introduce himself. "I am Han." Before he finished speaking, a gloomy atmosphere spread around Mr. Ha's car. "Go away now." Han wouldn't dare linger any longer and left dejectedly. "Yes." The atmosphere of the class suddenly turned sad. Mr. Ha stands still with a cold expression and his eyes closed, but suddenly opens his sharp eyes and looks in a certain direction. When Han's car didn't care and was leisurely preparing to leave the classroom, he spoke up. Did Han's car stop to answer a question? "What do you know about me?" A muscular man's body radiates a swirling red aura. "I heard that the mastery of Thuanghua Luan Tan Diem is determined by the number of train wheels. Leon, the current head of Hoa Hua sect and an A-class hero, has reached 8 wheels. Sehun slowly approached the door and gave him an answer. Since the 3 wheels he just created were very easy, if done correctly, he could maintain 6 wheels at the same time. Mr. Ha's car was quickly catching up as he reached out and said, "So what if that's the case?" Han's car suddenly made a sound that froze him in place. "You've touched the 7th wheel before, haven't you?" He casually put his hands in his pockets and kept a close watch, but one day he would no longer be able to hold on to it. Ha, standing behind, trembles with anger as he watches his back. How could he know that when he has never even reported it to the master? My face turns cold, and my words become icy. You see, I have a bit of a gift for controlling fire, but when I watch the flames you conjure, I feel something very strange. He couldn't fully unleash the remaining force, or rather, he was letting it go chaotically. Zaha moved closer and directly asked, "Do you know what the cause is?" His face froze and his eyes widened in surprise when he heard it. I have some guesses, but what he says next shatters his hopes. But I don't see the need to tell you what to do. Mr. Ha said confusedly. "What?" He stood behind, gripping his own sidearm tightly. "State your request." Zehun also didn't hesitate to point his index finger up. "First, you must pay a worthy price for all my advice and help." 2 fingers are raised on the hand. "Second, when facing difficult decisions, you must consult with me." Zehun finished speaking and then walked away directly. "Tell me your decision before we step into the training room." Ong Ha's car, leaning behind without hesitation or further thought, immediately gives an answer. "I agree." His voice serious. He set a condition if you can prove it. Time shifts to another place. An afternoon at the blacksmith's workshop. In this area, a few people dressed in identical medical uniforms are working. Hun is focused on placing objects into the hot furnace. Is he creating without even drawing a single sketch? Could it be that he means there's no need to test the selected stones in the furnace, fire system, and dark ore stolen at a 7-to-3 ratio? 2 people have already approached your diligent back and are whispering. What if all the attribute magic just disappears if you keep randomly messing with it? Why is the top student of the department acting so crazy? His gaze remains steady, focused solely on calculating as the temperature rises until the attribute magic begins to seep out. Hyun quickly takes off his glove and directly plunges his hand into the fire, controlling the flames of the magic to hold on to that attribute. That is the heat replacement technique. Riz breaks out in a cold sweat as he watches from outside. Did he perform the heat replacement right from the start? So Professor Kim In-on agreed to the public auction for this reason. The burned car on his face revealed a small smile at the corner of the lips. To ordinary eyes, it just looks like a normal heat replacement trick. But for Yomzon, a completely different scene must be unfolding. Silently opening his eyes and watching from another moment. Watch carefully. The black shoes press down on the pedal, the tip of the toe pushing forward. A source of red fire magic mixed with a bit of black erupts. The spreading transformation magic is drawn inward. The dark magic force deep inside is placed outside, maintaining a perfect circle by balancing the opposing magical energies. Mr. Ha stands with his arms crossed, seeming focused but also disappointed. Is that all? Hun's eyes spun like train wheels, my second magic attribute, which was once forbidden because it was believed to hinder the cycle of destruction, still left Mr. Ha looking confused with wide eyes as he scratched his head. If I use it this way, I have fallen to the 5th wheel level. Zehun was startled to hear that. What? Mr. Ha's vehicle completed 5 rotations right in front of us, then he explained it to me. I succeeded in completing the black fire wheel, but I don't have enough strength to reach 6. Zehun still insists that rolling the black fire wheel is stronger than 7 ordinary train wheels. He seems a bit troubled, closing his eyes tightly before turning away. The Fire Flower sect regularly sends instructors to check the skills of the inheriting disciples working outside. A giant black dark circle was created for the fire magic to pass through, and if someone fell below the 6th wheel, they would be stripped of their inheritance. Zehun, indifferent, proposed an old solution, so he would just do it the old way this time. Mr. Ha sighed and formed a small circle in his palm, but that wouldn't work either. The black magic force was being unleashed powerfully behind the wheel. My shadow magic can no longer be controlled. Zehun is also feeling frustrated and annoyed. When will that instructor arrive? Mr. Ha's car has the answer for him. Tomorrow. He raises his hand, closes his eyes, and looks in another direction, lost in thought. He once said that losing the air position means being expelled immediately. There is a method that can be applied within just 1 day. Suddenly, he firmly grabbed Zhang Ha's shoulder. Hun's car looked excited as he asked at that moment, will his succession position be secured if he does something? He answered seriously and briefly, I can. His eyes turned serious again. All right then. He smiled and then took out a red-black crystal with both hands. The connection is complete. High-quality red-dark crystal with the best attributes. A rare alloy where fire and shadow energy coexist, creating a resonance that amplifies internal power. First, we will change his weapon. Seon Ha then led him to a place to see a high-end room. This is Aga QUF's private training room. Only the top-ranked in the top 100 of the martial arts school or the top 30 of the faculties are allowed to use it. Zehun just sighed and said, typical show-off. He tapped once on this blue screen. The interface can also be changed here, right? I'll make a small adjustment. The two of them stand still and watch the interface change before their eyes. Hun immediately points and teases the Huamon car. Do you miss home that much? He calmly explained, my master sent it to me, so I only use it occasionally. He took out the black crystal in his hand and looked at it with enthusiasm. Then let's start crafting the training tools. With a gentle flick, the fiery black crystal shattered into 2. The high-grade red resonance, black crystal link, a rare ore where fire and dark magic energies coexist. The wave created by these 2 attributes will resonate with innate magic power. A long, pointed weapon has just been finished. It's done. Seha takes the 2 spears in his hands, looking at them with some concern, feeling awkward with 1 spear and having to handle 2. Sehun remains very calm. This is better suited for controlling 2 types of elemental magic. Zehun is really facing the cold resistance. Just point and guide him. From now on, create a magic wheel with your left hand and release dark attribute magic with your right hand. He was a bit surprised after hearing that. Just release it, he confirms. That's right. Mr. Ha closes his eyes to stay calm. His eyes sharpened as he spun his spear around in a quick circle. Mr. Ha's car suddenly had to stop when he realized the spear on the tree was emanating magic. He didn't understand, and stared intently at the spear. What was that just now? Sehun calmly points at it, and explains to him that he accidentally allowed the dark energy to flow into his left hand. He feels the aura emanating from the spear. The mixing and escaping of different elemental auras is natural, but in his case, the chaos is so severe that they interfere with each other. Maybe it's because all this time you've only been suppressing the dark system's magic. Zehun put a bracelet on his wrist, so if you get used to managing both types of magic at the same time, reaching the 6th wheel will happen very quickly. Put this on while you train too. Mr. Hai looks at the bracelet on his wrist and smiles. You have good equipment. Then he kept practicing with the spear in various poses. 3 hours of training have passed. Hun Si stands outside, watching with a satisfied smile at the progress. He adapts so quickly. Could it be because this training method was devised by his future self? Feel how every cell of his body perceives the surrounding mana source to see how talented his past self was. His breathing moves his muscles. The shift in center of gravity, the wave of magical energy flowing through the body and emanating from the tip of the nose, caught Z2's curiosity as he noticed the gaze. "What are you staring at?" Zihun sat back with his hands under his chin, looking very innocent. "What do you think? I'm just collecting data." He was taking a break, brushing his hand across his cheek, then suddenly froze. "I need it to make the weapons you'll use." Zehun sits casually on the chair. "This time, I made it just to turn in my homework, so don't get your hopes up too high." Zeha turned away, avoiding eye contact. Who would expect a first-year student to be making weapons anyway? Zehun refused to sit still, glancing elsewhere, while Zeonha forcefully swung both spears from above, straight down. Is there a reason why he must firmly hold on to the inheritance? He didn't turn around and simply replied, "Master wants me to become the head." He stood there with two spears hanging loosely, his voice cold, so as a disciple I just follow his wishes. The person who adopted the orphan Yomzong-ha and took care of him was the S-rank hero, and also the first sect master of Hua-Hua-Mon. The photo hanging on the wall clearly shows his face and name, Ion. When he was young, he sat beside Zong-ha, ruffling his hair and giving him guidance. Although he lost his strength after retiring due to injury, as a teacher and a father figure, he still held absolute influence over this guy. Sẽ hít một hồi vào trong tay, nhắm mắt nhớ lại khoảnh khắc ba người gặp nhau, hay hòa thuận với nhau nhẹ. Level 3 connection, yes? Zehada shifts his gaze to the corner of his eye, trying to understand why you helped me. His eyebrows furrow as he narrows his eyes in thought. It is once again a dark, desolate place covering everything from the forest to the 6 great demon region city, where once swampy chaos reigned, now filled with monsters. Hun sat down with his legs crossed on the chair, facing him. I plan to infiltrate all those demon realms. To do that, I need protectors and materials to craft weapons for them. You didn't hesitate to give a very ambitious-looking hand. If you're the next head of the Flower Fire sect, your skills and financial situation must be pretty good, right? Seeing that attitude, he's also at a loss for words. You really are pragmatic. Zehun looked serious and frowned. Of course, we haven't known each other long, so why would I do charity work for you? What? Ong-ha's car taps the back of his shoulder with the spear. Are you saying that if I accept your help, I have to pay a worthy price? He glared and pointed his spear directly at your sharp eyes. Help me become the head of the Hua-Hua sect. Then I will follow you into the 6 great demon abyss. Suddenly, the memories from before became familiar again, coming from Zong-ha's own words. Make me a weapon, and now I will destroy the demon gods in your place. His mouth curves into a smile as he pulls out a brand new black crystal from his finger. You don't regret it, do you? That black crystal in your hands keeps unleashing powerful demonic energy. Now, even if you don't want to go, I will still make you the head of the sect. The red linked black crystal resonance mark is activated. In the shared training hall on the first floor of Flavium, Hyun-un appeared seriously along with his attendants. It's been a while since he last saw the young master. I am Gang Hyun-un, the 7 Rings elder of the Fireflower sect. Seon-ha is paying attention to the 3 people behind him. Who are those people over there? Hyun-un extended his hand to introduce them. They are all disciples personally chosen by the sect leader. The person who gifts me must help broaden their horizons with a sparring match between me and the young master. He even deliberately covered his mouth with his hand and giggled when mentioning it. Because the young master is the most talented person after the next head of the sect. Seon-ha didn't look happy and immediately reminded him, Hey, Teacher Hyun. His cold gaze fixed intently on him. The next successor to the sect leader position has not been decided yet. Be careful with your words. Hyun-un still felt naturally and openly smile on his face. I sincerely apologize. Maybe I was a bit mistaken for a moment. Hyun-un extended his arm seriously into the important matter. So, now shall we begin the skill assessment? Zeha bluntly refused without hesitation. No, within half a spin, the title will appear. I propose to undergo the 7-circle upgrade. Hyun-un looked at him with a contemptuous expression. A naive fool who only knows how to train and still dares to dream of becoming the sect leader? He remembers the words of the one supporting him and then arrogantly, if Yomsong wants to challenge the 7-circle level, then he must defeat him thoroughly. No matter what happens, I will step in and settle it properly. Hyun-un stood opposite him, speaking at length. From the 7th level onward, the content will include direct combat with the instructor. Young master, you should also consider the Grand Elder Yum-jin Hyun at the main hall. For you right now, isn't that still too early, young master? Seon-ha just stood there ignoring him, saying you've said enough. Seon-ha even dares to insult his pride, or perhaps he's afraid of losing his position as a guardian. Hearing that, Hayeon-un went crazy and immediately called someone. Quickly bring my spear here now. This 7-round upgrade will be conducted as a duel. He held his spear upright. This form of combat is actually very simple. It's a contest of pure strength, and the one with the stronger fire wheel will win. The condition for promotion is that you must win, or at least have fire. Mr. Ha's car eyes sharpen as he grips 2 swords at the sound of the call. All right, let's begin. At first, when he saw his weapon, Hayeon-un confidently covered his mouth and sneered. Did he use the spear formation? That was quite lacking in finesse. But Mr. Ha didn't care much. His sharp eyes brandished 2 spears as he charged forward with fierce fire magic. Hyun-un is still standing there, blaming. Did he forget all the countless warnings to suppress his shadow attribute mana? Such chaotic flames will never be recognized as a fire wheel. Mr. Tu's car chuckled after creating swirling rings of fire around himself. Let's see what happens when we really unleash it. Hyun-un looks very confident, just swinging a spear behind him. You will definitely regret this. He begins to seriously assume the stance to spin out the fire rings. The light from the fire element system mixes into the shadow system and erupts. No one can be seen anymore. His eyes suddenly widen in shock. What kind of monster is this? A black dragon piercing through the flames and devouring them. Is my fire wheel being swallowed up? Is it being torn apart completely? His eyes, full of madness and darkness, were still stunned, and just a few seconds later, his spear was shattered into 3 pieces. Hyun-un knelt on the ground before the broken weapon. Mr. Ha, holding 2 spears in his hands proudly in front of his dejected appearance, says, "Is it inefficient?" Jae-hun, standing behind and observing, feels a bit regretful. What will happen next? It's such a waste of excellent materials. Mr. Ha is holding 2 spears and talking with him. Once the upcoming promotion ceremony takes place, I will officially be recognized as a guardian of the Fire Flower sect and the legitimate successor. Sehun lowered his head curiously. How can you sit in the position of sect leader? Zeong-ha glanced over from the side, knowing that 2 conditions must be met. First, he must reach the 8th level, and second, gain the approval of the majority of the other elders. Jae-hun lowered himself close to the ground, picking up the broken pieces of the spear, even when he had already reached the 8th level. Can he get them to agree? Jae-ha immediately confirms confidently. I can secure their agreement through a duel, so that's not an issue. But at that point, it won't be a friendly match anymore, and things won't be as easy as today. Hearing that, he stood up and put his hands in his pockets. So it probably won't take too long. Jong-ha stands beside, still seriously gripping his spear, and says, "Sounds a bit too easy, doesn't it?" Hun just responds casually. I said that because I think it's completely feasible. Just look at today's results. Why are you looking at me like that? He looks at you evenly. From now on, think about how you'll pay this price. Haskar closed his eyes, looking calm, with a slight smile as if willing to agree. Just let me know what you need to settle this. Whether it's cash or materials, I will do everything I can to provide it. His voice drops to a serious, deep tone. Moreover, I have another item I want you to work on. Jae-hun glanced at him with a surprised look. Another new order so quickly? Suddenly, Jong-ha clenched his weapon in his hand. These things are not bad in quality, but I'm just borrowing one to submit for class. His mouth curves into a smile as if he had already planned it. If he can create them in just a few short hours, I'm really curious to see how the next spear will be forged. Mr. Ha's vehicle forcefully punches the shoulder of Hun's vehicle. Make me a weapon that's even easier to use. Sehun walks alongside him at a leisurely pace. Put down that spear. You almost hit us. What did you just say? The connection level with Yamzonha has increased to level 2. As the bond level increases, the relationship between the 2 sides will become stronger. The current connection between the target IO-M-SIO-H is a transaction. H-M-C-O. Whenever a transaction with an object is completed, a link stone will be formed. The crystallization speed of the link stone will accelerate when a transaction is in progress and there are no stones currently present. The scene shifts to a crowded audience with lights shining on the stage at the auction house, as the host, looking very respectful, gestures to introduce. Thank you all for patiently waiting. The second-year cultivation department's regular auction will now begin. The hover car appears here in the audience seats. I didn't expect so many people to attend on a regular day. Erica sat beside him, paying attention to his outfit. Did you just change your style? I just crossed my arms and looked evenly at you. Professor Incheon reminded me that appearance is very important, so he is thinking more carefully. It seems that the title of top student in the department is truly something special. Inan appears calmly under the spotlight on stage. It will be very difficult to openly control someone who is the center of attention. Zehun sat with his arms crossed, revealing a sly smile on his face as he watched. I am quite curious about Maiko's plan to take control of the refining department. Today's topic is iron swords. A total of 36 items have been sent in, and we will have an additional special quality inspection step. According to the host on stage, a white fabric has been brought out. This fabric is gump, woven from melted fur of an S-rank white tiger beast. It is soft yet as durable as metal, and resistant to slashes, as another man steps forward and forcefully cuts into the fabric. Thanks to that, a loud noise echoed through the room. The host pointed to the phenomenon happening on the stage. As you can see, to increase damage potential, we can easily identify items that have had their durability reduced. In this auction, we will use CUMP to eliminate such defective items. The first item handed over is a sword, and now the first sword being introduced is Joseph's hexagonal lamb sword. The murmurs of the crowd start to rise. Oh, that looks pretty interesting. It seems they prepared everything very carefully. Erica glared sharply at the car sitting next to her. Do you know why they did that? He analyzes a fierce white tiger with blue eyes. Most people only know that the body of the white tiger is very tough, but in reality its abilities are a bit more complex. Its fur, skin, and bones all have completely different characteristics. Especially, its fur can mimic the sharpness of any metal weapon it touches, so no matter how good the weapon is, it will gradually wear down the edge. Eric placed his hand on his chin, thinking seriously. If so, wouldn't the pure light sword be at a disadvantage, because swords that prioritize sharpness usually have low durability? Ehun rests his chin on his hand, with a look of anticipation on his face. That's exactly right. This is clearly a blatant trap aimed at me and Professor Kim Incheon, but if the sword breaks here, the reputation of the guiding professor will also be seriously affected. That only happens if it is not carefully crafted. On stage, the host forcefully struck the auction charm. The 25th sword has been sold for 4 million. The final sword to be displayed is the number 36, belonging to the top first-year student in the refining department, Lai Se-hun. The quality inspection process for the white radiant longsword will now begin. As soon as the sharp blade strikes the white cloth, a powerful burst of energy erupts. The man tightly gripped the hilt of the sword, but it suddenly slipped out of his control. Mai, who just witnessed the scene, froze in place with a pale face. That was the white light longsword, still sharp, only partially broken at the tip. What just happened?